Called the meeting to order, roll call, followed by invocation, followed up invocation, and Ms. Bowers will do the invocation. Thank you, Ms. Bowers.
Thanks for volunteering.
You're welcome. Happy to help.
Pledge allegiance, Mr. Mattson. Then we'll follow up with communications. Is Mr. Matt Long here?
I thought I saw him walking.
Is he outside? Okay. Under communications, we have Matt Long, who's doing a presentation, followed by courtesy of the floor. Council members, look at your approval of minutes for the legislative session of November 23rd, 2021, and also for a special legislative session of December 7th, 2021. Moving on to reports of committee, report from Chair Allett on the work session of December 7th, 2021. Mr. Allett, followed by Ms. Bowers, Chair Bowers on the work session of December 7th, 2021. Report from Chair Green on the work session of December 2021. Report from Chair Mattson on the work session of December 2021.
President Williams?
Yes.
I have a question for my report. Since
Yes.
one of the resolutions, 81, will require a breakout session. I guess my question is, how should my report reflect
Okay,
that situation?
we'll get to resolution 80 and then I will suspend the rules.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's how my report just kind of has it on the
Right,
current
just
page.
include it in your report that I'll suspend the rules so you can have. Okay. Thank you. We then move on to report from Chair Majors on the work session of December 7th, 2021. Ordinance for first reading, we have none. Ordinance for amendment, Bill 20, 2021. That's amended. We have a motion to amend that. Ordinance for final passage, Bill 15, 2021 is a vote. Bill 16 is a vote. Bill 17 is a vote. Bill 18 is a vote. Bill 19 is a vote. Bill 20 as amended is a vote. Moving on to resolutions. Resolution 78 is a vote. Resolution 80 is a vote. We move on to resolution 81. At that time, I will suspend the rules and we will go into a discussion. Resolution 82, vote. Resolution 83, vote. Resolution 84, vote. Resolution 85, vote. And resolution 86, a vote. Followed by old business, new business, and then we will adjourn. Thank you.
It doesn't need a formal motion. It just has to be in the report that it's going to be changed. Whichever you wish.
Council members. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harrisburg City Council Legislative Session. Today is Tuesday, December 14, 2021. I am officially calling this meeting to order at 6:00 p.m. Mr. Petrosky, please do the roll call.
Mr. Allett,
Present.
Ms. Bowers,
Present.
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Green,
Present.
Mr. Madsen,
Here.
Mr. Majors,
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Present. Thank you, Mr. Petrosky. Moving on to the invocation, Ms. Bowers, please.
Thank you, President Williams. At first, I would like to ask that we all please keep the following families in their thoughts and prayers during their time of bereavement: the Manigault family, the Reeves family, the Green and Flowers families, the Cofield family, and the Oliver family. We could please have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. We move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Madsen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation. Thank you.
Before we move on to communications, Mr. Allett, who is the Vice President, and myself, this is our last meeting. And so we want to just send a message out to the public and to the council members. So, Mr. Allett.
Will you make me go first?
Let me go first. Okay. Wow, he's so nice. And go first. Good evening, everyone. 16 years ago, the voters in the city of Harrisburg elected me to be their voice as a city councilwoman. And I am deeply honored that you have elected me as the next mayor beginning January 3rd, 2022. To my colleagues, you gave me an opportunity to be the leader of this council for 12 years. And I take pride in knowing that I had a hand in making this council what it is today, a professional body that collaborates and respects one another to move things forward in a positive direction. As I preside over my last council meeting tonight, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to my colleagues for having faith in my leadership and the willingness to to step in when I was not able to attend a council meeting. Thank you so much. Lastly, a sincere appreciation to my staff, Kirk Petrosky and Chardan Houston, for their outstanding professionalism in the office of City Council. I couldn't have made it without them. I look forward to working with all of you to unite, revitalize, and move Harrisburg forward in a new direction. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all. And I'll see you on January 3rd, 2022, as your next mayor in City Hall upstairs. So good evening, and I'll now turn it over to Mr. Ben Allen.
Thank you. So I cannot believe that my time on council has come to an end. The last 8 years have flown by, half of your time, Wanda.
I get you.
And I sit here tonight with so much gratitude. So if you all could indulge me just a bit to offer some thanks. First, thank you to the residents of Harrisburg. Thank you for the chance gosh. No, I'm not gonna cry, I don't do that. Never emote. Anyway, thank you to the residents of Harrisburg for taking a chance on me 8 years ago to represent your interests on council and then re-electing me 4 years ago. It's been one of the greatest joys of my life to represent you all in this capacity. It has been and always will be such an important job and one that I'm deeply honored to have been able to do. Secondly, thank you so much to my colleagues on council, both past and present. I'm in all of your passions and I've loved the opportunity to collaborate with you and hear your perspective and your voice. And I'm inspired by both the love you have for this great city and the commitment to serving. A special thanks to Wanda, my partnership in crime over here. And as I mentioned on the night you were officially elected the next mayor of our city, you've been so important to me and I value the time we spent and the countless hours we've spent talking about a path forward on legislation, policy, and how to work with this administration.
Right.
Your passion and love for the city is palpable and your historical knowledge of where we all have been will serve you well as you guide the city through the next few years as its mayor. My word of advice for you is simple. Remember this role in council. Remember these faces and continue to work with them in moving the city forward in a collaborative manner. Also know that I'm always here as a friend and someone to talk to. And I continue. Let's have for a bit of water. I promise it's just water. To Kirk, Chardan, and the many employees of the city, thank you for the work you do. It's often thankless and it's often over and beyond the call of duty. I've appreciated your work ethic, your willingness to take my call, to help me when it was needed, and for your service to our community. You're often the unseen voices in terms of all the work that we do. Also, thank you to my friends and family, or as often referred to, my chosen family. Thank you for your presence tonight and your unwavering support of my passion for public service. This is usually when I have a hard time. Lastly, thank you to my husband, who's here tonight. It's important for me to recognize him because of his unwavering support of my passions and his ability to simply say yes to whatever crazy ideas I have, including things like running for office. The life of a political spouse is not easy, and for that I'm thankful that you stood by my side, walked hand in hand with me, and supported my endeavors. Many don't know that we actually started dating the first year of my term, got married the year I ran for re-election, and he's been with me every step of the way. I love you. And I couldn't have done it without you. So, now my time on this council has come to a close. I've been reflective of the work we've done over the past few years, and as I was thinking about it, I'm reminded of elected officials who like to tout what they've accomplished, often using I and me statements. I wanted to remind everyone that when you're elected, you are a we and part of a team. It takes a whole community to advocate and bring about change. It takes a host of elected officials to come together and strive towards progress, and the work is never fully completed. It will always continue because progress only happens when we work collectively to make it happen. I am proud of the work we have done to stabilize the finances in the city, to drive policies to recognize, champion, and promote greater inclusion. And ultimately, I'm proud of the way we've worked together on this council to get the job done. I hope that you all know how much I love this community, and I'm appreciative of having the opportunity to share a bit of me with all of you over the course of the last 8 years. As this period of my life comes to a close, I refuse to say goodbye, because that implies some finality to my work in public service. I want you all to know I'm not done by any stretch of imagination, and I look forward to future opportunities to serve. So in closing, I'll simply say, I'll see you soon. So as my time on this council comes to an end, I wish all of you the happiest of holidays and a new year full of hope, joy, and sense of renewal. And thank you for indulging me, and my heart is full of gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We now move on to communications. Tonight, Mr. Matt Long would like to do a presentation. Is he here? I think he set the projector and everything up for you.
You got the file that you did.
Yeah, I think it's all up. Yeah, no, I think it's loaded onto the laptop. The presentation, I think so.
It was me. Well, you already have it. You already have it up. Yeah, you have it up.
Real quick to this, sorry.
It's not gonna be able to be forwarded.
Can you give me this email address? for this
No,
one?
I was gonna say,
I don't know what's on there.
Hey, Dave, can you just give him that computer and hook up to that? That's actually a good idea.
Yeah. No, 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 no. Well, I think you need. Mr. Long, while that's uploading, I'm gonna move on, excuse me. Excuse me, everyone. While Mr. Long is trying to upload his flash drive to do the presentation, I am going to move on to courtesy of the floor. Oh, you have it already? Okay, all right.
Okay, starting here, we're here tonight. Phase 1 is what we are seeking approval for our land development plan on. This will consist of 8 townhomes and 12 apartments above a community center in a separate building, a 4-story building that fronts on 3rd Street. This is just a quick brief. I'll try to move quickly on this of all the upcoming phases and different types of projects that we have that all combine for one Capitol Heights and Marketplace development. This project, I'm going to move quickly down to phase 2 and 2A. If it lets me.
Mr. Long, will you tell them where you're going to develop these apartments and townhomes? That's just you telling them.
Oh, yes.
They are not
So
aware of what the streets are that.
The 8 townhomes will be on Logan between Clinton and Hamilton Street. The community center and apartments above will be on 3rd Street between Clinton and Hamilton also. Get this to cooperate here. This will be the market rate portion of the project. We are going to meet with Council Member Bowers to discuss the implementation of 16 of 2020 for 3 of the units on the 12-unit building. This is just a quick overview of the townhouses. These are 3-story, 2-car garage townhouses. Phase 2 will just be more townhouses that are built over in the Marketplace section. Similar design to those that are just shown. Phase 2A, this is the prototype plan for PHFA, Community Revitalization Act funding. The 3 buildings would have 1st floor retail and affordable housing above. They would range from 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. There would be 4 units in one, 8 in another, and 10 in another with adjacent parking. Scroll down a little bit more. These will keep with the same aesthetic as the first phase. This slide is one of the most important that I'd like to show. We have recently implemented or picked 12 locations for affordable townhouses, single family townhouses with a yard. They will be for the less than 80% median income qualification. There'll be incentives. We're going to work with kind of whoever we have to. It's going to be PHFA, Dauphin County, the city, first time home buyer for low income tax credit type purpose. And, the big striking point of that is the below 80% area median income. This was done prior by Tri-County Housing a few times. And if you see the townhouses that are shown there along Logan and Clinton Streets, those would be the townhouses for the affordable income. And then there are also 8 more locations between Kelker, Susquehanna, Riley, and I believe Marion Street. Phase 3 is a 38 unit. This is a kind of a complex building here because the lots are scattered. You would only be able to create about 4 townhouses that would front on 4th and 2 that would front on Logan, which brought us to doing a first floor parking structure underneath with the apartments above. That would range, it would be particularly 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. We're not overly keen on 1 bedroom, but there will be some due to layout. That is the front elevation that would front on 4th Street. It would have 2 small kiosks that are under 500 square feet. The idea would be coffee shop, newspaper stand, something grab and go type, give a small business an opportunity. One thing on the phase 2A, the previous one, with the PHFA Community Revitalization Fund, there is rent control on the commercial spaces that would sit on those first floor too. It's below the market rate of the area by, I think, about 4%. It's pretty close in Harrisburg. Phase 3 here also has surface parking. The first floor has the parking for the tenants, and then the surface parking is for overflow. The idea is that those will be permeable pavers to deal with stormwater management. There's also a green area and walking path, as which most of these phases will have leading to them to create walkability. 3A is back to Marketplace. This is a continuation of the existing layout that was there for townhouses. Phase 4 is a little bit different. These are our concept of a continuation of the Broad Street Market, a 7-day-a-week operation. One thing our firm has done over the last few years is several Broad Street Market vendors that wish to expand. We have done brick and mortar buildings for them. So we'd like to create the opportunity that 3 to 4 vendors could go into a building, have a rooftop deck, have outdoor seating, and be open 7 days a week to expand their business. We would be creating at least 2 of these, hopefully 3, depending on lot layout and configuration. Just a quick overview. Phase 5 is kind of a little bit of breaking the mold from the rest of this. This is a larger building on 6th Street that we are actively seeking, as you can see on the right-hand corner there, national chain restaurants. These are the ones that we've been in contact with already for the first floor commercial space and would have apartments above. This would be a building in particular that we'd want to work to implement 16 to 2020 or something similar with the 20% affordable threshold. And this is, again, an odd layout. We're using infill lots to try to create a bigger building because you could only fit about 4 townhouses here with the current restrictions. And then we've filled in the back areas with parking for the structures with lots that we've obtained privately. Phase 6, this has to be updated. This is a little bit older rendering. 6 to the left and 6 to the right of the number 6 will stay as townhouse builds. However, the facing on Riley will be that the PHFA community revitalization. It'll be a 4-story that has the first floor commercial space and then the affordable apartments above. Phase 7 is just more town. That's the infill lots at Marketplace following the existing land development plans. Phase 8, I'll caution, there has been pushback from the neighbors. This will have a redesign. There's a concentrated group. It's only a few, but we want to take in their concerns. They do not like the size of it. Given to the right of it, you have the Hack Midtown 2. To the left, you have Townhouses. We want above both those buildings, we're going to kind of lower that down. But the idea there is still, we've have one contact with a national retailer. It is Aldi. That is the concept. We'd have to fit their floor plan to try to get them. So, but the idea would be go from 5 stories down to 4 stories to alleviate the burden of the height. Phase 9 is mixed use. This is really to be flushed out. Again, it's, as you can see, a very strange layout. It's not that big of an area, but following the 6th Street corridor, you have directly in front of it, well, not directly in front of it, but catty corner to it, the federal courthouse, you have the 1500. The idea would be for vertical there for development and not just flat. Phase 10, now this is not shown on there. We're working to acquire a parcel directly adjacent to these to create larger elongated structures for apartments. That would be a mixture of market rate and affordable. Phase 11, I apologize, it says 12 unit. That is only a 8-unit building there. Surveyed the lots, it came out a little bit lower. And phase 12 is actually redesigned. This will be, we can fit 3 townhouses there. These will be 3 of the townhouses for the affordable section. And these are just some green spaces.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. We had the meeting last Thursday with Council President Williams and Councilwoman Bowers, given her role as Chair of Building and Housing. So I will defer the time for questions from my colleagues who were not present to the meeting. And the only reason they could not be present is due to sunshine laws. Only 3 council members can meet at a time. So, but the information was shared with them. I'll allow them to ask any questions they may have. So, I will start to the far right with Councilwoman Daniels. Councilman.
Yes, just a few questions here. So the only thing that currently is before us is phase 1, correct?
Land development. Yes.
The land development plan for just
The 12 apartments,
12
community
apartments.
center, and the 8 townhomes.
okay. Appreciate the presentation. Just gonna ask a few high level questions that I have from this. So what is the timeline for all 12 phases?
Less than 5 years.
Okay. Total number of units you're looking to do across the 12 phases?
It's fluctuating a little bit because, as I said, phase 8 is getting cut down from a 56 unit to about a 42 unit. All in all, there's going to be right around 50 townhouses. At least 12 of them will be affordable with the below 80% median income. The amount of apartments is fluctuating a little bit here. I believe we're at 160 plus, but we're cutting that down in 2 separate sections, and we're redoing phase 6, so I can get solid numbers in the next week.
I mean, this is going to be a process, so this won't be the last time we go before us. I'm just trying to get an approximation.
Yes.
In terms of the number of potential affordable apartment units.
Yep.
What are you looking at?
It would be 20%.
20% of the.
Yes. Yep, and the one thing will be is some buildings, there will be certain buildings that will be only market rate. And then there will also be certain buildings, like there's 3 on phase 2A that are strictly affordable.
Right,
And then there'll be, of course, the larger buildings will have a mixture of both.
okay. Got it. Don't need all the detail right now. I'm just trying to get high level since we,
Yep.
again, we're gonna have plenty of time over 5
Absolutely.
years to
Yep.
get very acquainted with each other. You mentioned PHFA funding several times. Have you gone for that funding, or is that potential? Those are all potential partners moving forward. Should you
Those are
go through
potential-
those? Okay,
Yes.
all right. So again, not guaranteed. National retailers, glad you're reaching out to those. And do you have any other, so just can you give me the phases in which you plan on doing affordable housing? So you mentioned 3 units potentially for phase 1. Maybe just the first two phases. Under phase 2 and phase 3, what other potential?
Yep. Phase 2A is the strictly affordable. That would be concurrent with phase 2. That would not be consecutive. They run concurrently. That's why the 2 and 2A. So we'd have one market rate portion and then one affordable and workouts. And then phase 3 is going to have your 20% mixture. Phase 4 is your market building. So
Okay,
that
all
won't
right.
happen.
That's okay.
Yep.
And then should you not be able to secure PHFA funding, what happens to those potential affordable units?
At the worst case scenario, we would implement the 20% across the board on those. But I have a strong feeling that we will be approved for that.
Okay,
We've had good progressive conversations on it.
okay, all right. Not sure what that means, but okay. But thank you for your time. I'll defer to my other colleagues because we'll have other opportunities to speak with each other over the next few years. Thank you.
I didn't have a chance to mention this, but the applicant is participating in the Florida program. Now what? Vice President Allen. I saw through some of the plans that you had addressed parking, but kind of in totality, how much parking are you building into the phases, like in terms of actual parking spots that might be off-street related?
Yep. So on the, to give a quick overview, on phase 1, every unit's covered. The townhouses have 2-car garages. Phase 2, we've actually broadened our parking behind each building. So every apartment will have at least one. For the 8 unit, it will have 2 overflow. For the 10 unit, it will have 3 overflow. Moving on to phase 3, that has 38 for a 38 unit inside. And then we have the additional overflow outside. I believe it's 8 to 12 there. Every phase has been given consideration. All the townhouses will have garages with them. And then, as you saw with phase 5, we acquired those parcels behind there to create the parking. So we've given consideration to at least 1+ per apartment.
Thank you for doing that, because I mean, as you know, those of us in Midtown, it's a struggle, and the struggle gets harder every day. The last question, so you mentioned all this should be done within 5 years. It looks like phase 1 and 2 seem to be some of the larger aspects of it. What timeline to start and to initially complete those 2 phases?
Phase 1, so phase 2 will be coming in January for planning and zoning, and then on to LDP. The phase 1 here, pending all approvals, we would be starting in March. The original goal was to start in October, but the timing of the approvals didn't work out.
And then in terms of your partners to complete the construction, are you working with the city to utilize maybe WEB programs?
Yes, and that's one thing that was discussed in our meeting last week. I've actually bought Clem and Jerome electricians that we use on almost every single job. Clem, as many know, is in the city. That's our go-to for the electrical. And of course, we'll continue to reach out as we always do.
Thank you. Thank you for that. President Williams?
Oh, I don't have any questions.
Yeah,
I think I've asked a volume of questions in 2.5 hours that we met.
Just one question. It seems like a massive project. I look forward to seeing it continue to progress along. Look forward to seeing you in front of the planning commission to discuss it more and more.
Yep.
But I hear you talking a lot about affordable housing. Do you have any plans for accessible housing? I know that's something we lack here in the city.
Yep, so it actually, originally, this phase one was set to have sidewalk level entrances, but it did not work out. There was just no way we could achieve it. Jeff came back to me several times, is like, we cannot do it. It's just, we don't have the grade on that. But moving forward, like phase three would be a 100%. Any of the larger structures are gonna have to be 100% accessible. There's no way to get around that. The goal and intention, as we set forward on phase one, we couldn't achieve, is that some of these townhouses will have the surface level entrance.
Thank you. The only question I have.
Thank you. Councilman Bowers, any additional questions?
Thank you. I just want to be clear on the number of affordable townhouses and units that are offered throughout the phases. But thank you so much for sharing the full plan, because I think after last week, I couldn't really follow you with the phases and the number of either units or townhouses. So this was helpful to me in talking it out during our meeting as well. So you mentioned 50 townhouses. So at least 12 of those will be affordable for our residents.
Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned at least 160.
It's
Apartments?
fluctuating, yeah. I think we're
Okay.
at 164 a week ago, and now that we've cut one down, we lost 12, but we then added one building that we've changed the style of it.
Okay, so if we just say 160, of the 160, at least 32
Yeah.
would be deemed affordable for our
Yes,
residents.
absolutely.
And you know that this is something that's very important to me. And given that we are discussing phase one, so you are comfortable with the 3 units
Yes,
and
so
implementing Bill
I had the
16?
chance after our meeting to review. I saw that they adopted the updated zoning regulations into the 2014 code. That gives me a lot more. I mean, that's a clear draft chart right there of what it offers. So yes, the intent is to meet with you after this and work to see, because as I said in our meeting, we would be the first ones to implement this in a project.
That's true. Okay, just wanted to be clear, make sure that I understood and read the plan correctly. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. President, how many?
Could you,
She's asking for a friend.
could you please tell the public how many affordable single-family homes will be available in each of those phases?
Well, it's 12 combined right now out of the 50.
In phase 1 and 2, or
Phase
phase 1 to 12?
of phase 1 to 12. Phase 1 does not have any that, and as I said, that is kind of the seed for the rest of it. Phase 2 has 4 right away.
Why would just encourage you to develop more single-family homes opposed to apartment buildings? Our kids need backyard and front yard playing, not running through the building.
Are there any other questions? The applicant have anything they'd like to add?
Not this.
One thing I did want to offer the MWB participants to maybe come up and just introduce themselves. And just because often we have a lot of development plans coming through, and we often ask them what their MWB participation is, and we get a mix of answers. Some are progressive and reaching out to them, and others sort of tell us we can't find any, or could you please send us a list? So I want the contact information for these MWD contractors so that way we can provide that, and
Yep,
in addition to
sure,
the
yeah,
list.
Absolutely. Yep. Clem, Jim, if you guys like them.
Hello, gentlemen. Would you mind just stating your names and record and your businesses for the record, please?
My name is Clem Anukuberi, the owner of Down Check Electrical Services.
Okay.
I've been a lifelong resident of Harrisburg since 2004. And I'm also a member of the code of Board of Appeals in the councils.
Okay.
And I've owned my business since 2011.
Okay, thank you for that.
Jerome Bostic, electrical contractor.
Could you come a little closer to the mic, please?
Jerome Bostic, my company's Expansion Wiring Technologies. I've been working since 2010. I'm born and raised in Harrisburg.
How many folks or city residents would you say are under your employment currently?
I currently have 2 other residents of Harrisburg that work under me.
And how many total?
Total 3 of us.
Okay, all right. And you?
2.
Okay.
Total of 3.
Okay. I just thought it would be beneficial for the community to see and meet some local NWB contractors. And question I have for you is, to the applicants that come before us with land development plans and say it's so hard to get city contractors. I mean, what is your opinion or take on that? Is that true, or do you find a lot of the folks that come before us being proactive and reaching out to you, or do you think they're just giving us lip service?
I'll say that they do, but then also we also have our own independent solicitations of like businesses. But every once in a while, it might be to a scope that we can't like handle. So we appreciate that they actually reach out to us in terms of like partnership with any contract that they get from the city.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, maybe some of the projects are a little too big in size and scope for what you're capable of doing.
Some of them are, but obviously we are all in the business of trying to grow. So the opportunity that we have, then it will give us more opportunity to hire more people and give at least the residents of Harrisburg a little more opportunity at a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you find skilled workers, or do you think, does the city have a sufficient amount of skilled workers, or is that something you think we should invest more in?
I think that's something that we need to invest more into, because some of the potential applicants that I might have, there's no resources that the city has in terms of a vocational resources for them to learn. I have helped at least 3 of my employees get certified in the city, but that's just them working just under me. And sometimes I will need to have like some kind of a vocational school that they can go to learn, and we can actually tap into that resources to, get some potential employees.
One last thing, is there anything you council could do to maybe assist to help you land some of those larger projects?
I think just to still be thinking of how to grow our businesses and how the city can be improved. And this is a right step in the direction in terms of like having this type of like, hearings and meetings, and that will be very, very helpful.
That came a lot from you, sir. Do you have anything like that to any of those questions? All right, I just thought it would be beneficial for the public and my colleagues to meet you and hear about some of the work and some things we could do to help and support your efforts.
Right.
I will open it up to any other additional questions. I don't know that we need to go through the gambit, but I'll just sort of throw it out if a council member has any questions or comments like that. Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Long, for that presentation. Have a good evening. We now move the courtesy of the floor. Anyone who would like to speak to council, please do so now. I usually start at my right, but I'm going to start at my left at this time. Anyone who would like to speak, please come now to the mic. In the middle.
Good evening, council members. Laura Harding, 2246 North 3rd Street. I would like to first speak today regarding resolution 81. I believe it's 81. Yes, 81 regarding the land development plan for the Hudson building. So first of all, no work to include the interior demolition should have begun without first obtaining city council approval with this land development plan. The work that has already been done on the building has been done illegally. In addition, potentially hazardous materials leached into the environment by illegal dumping that both the developer and the city were involved in. These toxins, potentially including asbestos-containing materials, made their way to the neighboring homes, water sources, Camp Curtin YMCA, 2 playgrounds, the Gorgas and Braxton playgrounds, and the 7th and Radnor Street parks. Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection has conducted a preliminary investigation, but is continuing the investigation after sourcing new information. So the investigation is not complete yet. Additionally, I've stated before, and I'll state again, number 12 on the land development plan application is economic development. And it says, the applicant has noted construction value of project not provided, total value of project not provided, number of construction jobs 100 to 150, and the applicant has not stated whether they have a plan for MBE or WBE participation. So there is no way the applicant does not know this information at this stage of design and development. The architect and engineer knows this information as they have already completed a design and plan. At the very least, they have an estimated cost of construction. Previous statements that the MBE and WBE plan is required by the RACP grant is incorrect, as I have reviewed those guidelines and compliance requirements on the Pennsylvania Budget Office website. Even if it is required under the RACP guidelines, this should not exempt the applicant from complying with the city's application requirements. The grant is for $2.5 million. So would those MBE and WBE awards then only apply to that amount? What if the total cost of construction is $20 million? How much would go to the MBE, WBEs then? What percentage of that $20 million? Hiring practices stating we hire 3 individuals from an electrical firm or company does not meet the requirements of an MBE and WBE plan. What percentage are those 3 individuals from that electrical firm that was just here, because it's the same contractor, how much are they getting? What percentage are they getting of that potentially $20 million total cost of construction? Now, environmental justice, the potentially hazardous materials that were leached into the environment is atrocious, especially with the proximity to the playgrounds. Additionally, lack of community engagement. This contractor, this developer claims that they have engaged with individuals from the community, but those individuals that they have met with regularly do not reside within the neighborhood, nor do they represent this community, but who wish to stake their own enterprising claims in the building and the neighborhood. CCNU is unaware of any actual representation from the neighborhood of Camp Curtin with the building plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harden.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Vanderhorst Gamble. I'm president of Camp Curtin's Neighborhood United. It is my understanding that we were removed from the HBC, the HABC, and the HBC because of the protest that we did in front of the bathhouse. After the protest, the relationship became void. The Adams building is the minority, the majority of the people, the majority of the people of the HBC and the HABC do live outside of Harrisburg. And I feel that the HBC and the HABC are strictly trying to fill their pockets instead of how it's going to affect the community. Their engagement, it seems as though that we were being used because we went around, CCNU went around and did the survey. We were all gun ho for this relationship to blossom. And then all of a sudden, it seems as though we were just kicked to the curb after they had received what they needed from us. So therefore, I'm making this statement to the city council right now, how CCNU feels about this situation. Oh, my address is 2908 Parkside Lane. I always forget that.
Good evening, Madam President, members of council. My name is Brian Hudson. I live at 4741 Great Oak Lane. I am the former CEO of PHFA. And I'm just here to support economic development overall. I did meet with the developer of the Hudson building, which I used to own. I sold it over 35 years ago. That vacant for many, many years. Now that rehab work that's to be done there is very extensive. That was supposed to be an 8-story building. So all the walls are 2 feet thick. There's a lot of asbestos there. And I know that dumping occurred over the years. I did encourage the developer to meet with the members of the community. And I know that some members are looking to start a co-op, which I started meeting with them to advise them how that could work. So I'm encouraged to see that there's something happening at 6 McClay Street, because that is one of the main interests into Harrisburg. But I think the community should be involved. And as we heard from the earlier developer on MBWB involvement, there's companies that can help locate minority developers, minority contractors, and ProRank, and I'm going to throw their name out here because that's one of the ones I used when we did the construction of our extension here at Front and Locust Street. So I'm encouraging the parties to work together here to try to come to some sort of resolvement. But at the same time, I'm very happy to see that we have economic development occurring at 6 McClay Street and certainly in Midtown. I know there's multiple phases to this other project, and that's a competitive process with PHFA, and there may be other opportunities as you move forward. And I'm just saying, take advantage of what's coming down the road, because this is going to be great for the city, the long overdue, and I'm here to support this economic renaissance is what I'll call it, that we're going through here to help. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the middle? Now to my right, anyone at the right would like to come to the mic, please do so.
Good evening, Council. Pam Parson, 18th and Holly. What I'd like to do, since this is the last council meeting of the year, is to just remind council of some unfinished business so that the folks who are continuing and our new mayor will remember that there are some things that still need to be worked on. And I think the big thing is policing. Yes, the quarterly reports are on the website, but if we don't actually read them and talk about them, then what are they telling us? And so I don't know if any on council have looked at them. I have looked at them. I'm not sure what they're telling us, except that I think there are some things that need to be addressed. And unless we pull them out and talk about it, that won't really happen. Related to that, what about the Citizens Law Enforcement Advisory Board? I've heard very little about it since council went on hiatus. I do know that the current administration made some appointments. I'm not aware of appointments that council has made. It would just be nice to know where we are with that. And I think that is important because, last year you gave public safety, in particular policing, the largest budget increase anytime in the history of Harrisburg. So what are we getting for our money? I know that there are the community service aides, but some of us would really like an update about what is happening with them. I've talked to a few people who've had some interactions with them in recent weeks, and it's been disappointing at best. The police have been out front, and in each case, this was dealing with someone with a mental health problem, and the CSA was back to the side. Also very concerning was the article in the newspaper about the female officer and the experience that she had in not using her taser. That indicates to me, although that was a few years ago, that indicates to me that there is some internal things which need to be addressed. And how is that happening? We have this use of force policy, but how is that being used? And it seems to me that that should be one of the tasks of the advisory committee. And we're more than a year past its creation in this particular iteration, and we don't have them yet. The other thing that I would like to draw your attention to is the American Recovery Plan funds. There is still no committee, any kind of community plan to deal with that. And a host of communities are well ahead of us in creating that. So what's going to happen to that money? How are we going to spend it? Which takes me to rules. Last week, which was a very long and grueling meeting, it was for those of us who were sitting here. I can only imagine what it was like for all of you up there. And there was some points in that meeting where people who did not live in the city were allowed to make what was essentially public comment without being asked to state names or where they live or anything like that. And yet I recall having been at council meetings where that rule was strictly enforced, where people who did not live in the city were not allowed to speak. So I'm feeling like that's a kind of gray area. And when I look at the appointments that are on the agenda, I see that there is an appointment to the redevelopment authority of someone who doesn't live here in the city. Mr. Reber's address is here, but mostly he lives, and he does vote here, but mostly he lives in Millersburg. And I was unable to find how, what the requirements are to serve on the redevelopment authority. So maybe I do not understand those, but I think it is important in groups such as that, in those types of boards and commissions, that it's really important for people to live here. And if nothing else, I mean, the optics are kind of bad. And finally, good luck in your new endeavors, Mr. Allett. Good luck to our new mayor-elect, and please stay safe this holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to my right, please?
Good evening, Tamiki Campbell, Shipoke, Harrisburg. First, wanted to say congratulations on a fruitful tenure to both President Williams and to Vice President Allett. Thank you so much for your service. Wanted to also give a nod to some of the redevelopment that's going on. We know that there are a lot of people being appointed to the various boards. One thing I will say is that you asked Mr. Allett, or I think it was you, asked how you could help minority business, MBE contractors know about these opportunities. I think one of the ways is maybe once these projects come up, I was just texting with a couple of contractors who are not aware of certain opportunities, but would love to get involved. So I don't know if it's appropriate, but maybe the city or a partnership between city and some organizations could hold some info sessions. I think there have been similar ones in the past, because I think there's a new crop of folks. I know I'm going to throw out a couple names. Greg Carter of Carter's Castle. He is a very, very talented developer in the area, has done some work on several homes and several properties around the county and around the region. But just having some info sessions, I'm hoping that's something that we can do. It sounds like a lot of amazing work is going to be happening, and definitely want to get those folks plugged in. And as always, Young Professionals of Color is here to help if needed as well. Also want to give a shout out to the Community Services Division of the HPD for securing a $500,000 grant to address gun violence in the city. I'm hoping that this is something that will be used in a collaborative way with the community. There are various organizations that are just chomping at the bit to get involved with the citywide community response to some of the gun violence issues still happening in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to my right? Seeing none, we'll now move on with the agenda. We now move on to approval of minutes. Approval of minutes for the legislative session November 21st, 2021. Also approval of minutes for the special legislative session of December 7th, 2021. Is there any omission, deletions, or corrections, council members? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved. We move on to reports of committee. Report from Chair Allett on the work session of December 7th, 2021. Mr. Allett, are you ready with your report?
I am, yes, thank you. On the work session of December 7th, we had 4 pieces of legislation to discuss in the Budget and Finance Committee. Up first for discussion was Bill 20, which was an ordinance of the City of Harrisburg establishing a new Part 2 1100 of the Codified Ordinance of Harrisburg entitled Responsible Contracting. This is a really crucial piece of legislation working with our trades partners, and particularly as it looks to establish and codify internships. There's going to be an amendment to this that my colleague will be making as we enter into that portion. That way, I think will make it just that much stronger for us. For anyone who wasn't there, it's so important to look at the trades profession within our city and within our region, and the need to focus on trades. So it was really a great evening to be able to hear from members who are working so hard to make that happen. So I do encourage my council colleagues to support that legislation as amended. Also up for discussion was Bill 18 and Bill 19 of 2021. These are the bills that we established to pass forward a budget to start off the 2022 year and ensure that the city can continue doing business as our new mayor gets up to speed with presenting a budget to City Council at the first legislative session of 2022. So I do encourage my colleagues to support this legislation, as we will need it to continue doing business until we are up and running with a new budget from a new mayor and a new council. Also up for discussion was Resolution 82 of 2021. This was a resolution ratifying and approving the 2022 to 2025 basic labor agreement between the City of Harrisburg and Local 521. This is something that is up for discussion. The biggest, I think, change to note for the community that I thought was of note that I wanted to share was extending what we call the probationary and introductory period from 6 months, I think, to 9 months. And also as part of that process, as to increase the wage to that would be the final wage, as opposed to what they call a provisional wage. So that was a major change in that agreement. I do encourage my colleagues to support that resolution. Thus concludes the legislation that was in my committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allett. We now move to report from Chair Bowers on the work session of December 7th, 2021. Ms. Bowers, are you ready with your report?
Yes, thank you, President Williams. On Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, the Building and Housing Committee met to discuss 4 resolutions related to appointments to the city's zoning hearing board. Resolution 80 of 2021 is a resolution appointing Mr. James Hobbs to serve on the zoning hearing board of the City of Harrisburg. Resolution 83 of 2021 is a resolution appointing Mr. Matthew Pianca to serve on the zoning hearing board of the City of Harrisburg. Resolution 84 of 2021 is a resolution appointing Mr. Claude Phipps to serve on the Zoning Hearing Board of the City of Harrisburg. And Resolution 85 of 2021 is a resolution appointing Ms. Anna Bianco to serve on the Zoning Hearing Board of the City of Harrisburg. The purpose of the Zoning Hearing Board is to review all applications for special exceptions and variances by conducting hearings and making decisions pursuant to the city's zoning code. In addition, the Zoning Hearing Board may also hear appeals of decisions made by the zoning officer. The Zoning Hearing Board is comprised of 3 members appointed by City Council, and the term for board service is 3 years. Board members will serve staggered terms beginning on January 1st, 2022. Mr. Hobbs, Mr. Pianka, Mr. Phipps, and Ms. Bianco were present. Council members asked questions regarding the applicant's impact that they would bring to the Zoning Hearing Board, recommendations to strengthen the city's zoning code, and recommendations to assist City Council in continuing to adjust the comprehensive plan. Resolution 80 of 2021 is amended to appoint Mr. James Hobbs to serve as an alternate on the Zoning Hearing Board. Mr. Hobbs' term will begin on January 1st, 2022 and expire on December 31st, 2024. Resolution 83 of 2021 is amended to appoint Mr. Matthew Pianka to serve on the Zoning Hearing Board. Mr. Pianka will serve on the Zoning Hearing Board for a 3-year term beginning on January 1st, 2022 and expiring on December 31st, 2024. Resolution 84 of 2021 is amended to appoint Mr. Claude Phipps to serve on the Zoning Hearing Board of the City of Harrisburg. Mr. Phipps will serve on the Zoning Hearing Board for a 2-year term beginning on January 1st, 2022 and expiring on December 31st, 2023. Resolution 85 of 2021 is amended to appoint Ms. Anna Bianco to serve on the Zoning Hearing Board of the City of Harrisburg. Ms. Bianco will serve on the Zoning Hearing Board for a 1-year term beginning January 1st, 2022 and expiring on December 31st, 2022. I would like to thank all of the applicants for their interest and willingness to serve. I would urge my colleagues to support these resolutions as they will bring the Zoning Hearing Board to a full complement plus 1 alternate. I would also like to thank former Chairman Tom Leonard for his years of dedicated service to the Zoning Hearing Board. I would also like to thank Shannon Gordy, who is a board member. Thank you, Shannon, for your service and time committed to the Zoning Hearing Board as well. This concludes the report of the Building and Housing Committee.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. We now move on to report from Chair Green on the work session of December 7th, 2021. Ms. Green.
Thank you, President Williams. During the work session of December 7th, 2021, the Public Safety Committee discussed Bill 15 of 2021. Bill 15 of 2021 is an ordinance updating Chapter 2-707 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Harrisburg, governing the police retirement system to provide technical amendments and incorporate the methodology for calculating final salary to ensure compliance with certain Internal Revenue Service requirements for governmental pension plans. During this work session, the outside firm of McNeese & Wallace came to answer questions that council had regarding Bill 15, as council had questions during the work session of November 16th, 2021. They also provided a written response to City Council regarding questions we had at the previous work session. Bill 15 will reconcile things already on the book, such as Resolution 68 of 2020. That uses the same language to provide an incentive for certain management staff and allows the city to retain and recruit management without the risk of them losing retirement benefits. If this bill is not passed, the city will be responsible for funding the lifetime annuity of the retiring officer, retiring police leadership the day that they retire. I'm asking that my colleagues for City Council support this resolution. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Green. We now move on to report from Chair Mattson on the work session of December 7th, 2021.
Thank you, President Williams. On December 7th of 2021, the Community and Economic Development Committee met to discuss resolutions 78 and 81. Resolution 78, a resolution approving a preliminary final land development and subdivision plan to consolidate 21 lots and re-subdivide them into 9 lots to allow the construction of a mixed-use building featuring a community center, 12 apartment units, and accessory parking on one parcel and 8 separate parcels, each accommodating a single townhouse in the square block bounded by Hamilton Street, Logan Street, Clinton Street, and North Third Street. Planning Director Knight gave an overview of the project. The applicant, Matthew Long, provided a detailed overview of the project. In particular, the various phases were discussed. Phases will include a community center, 18 new townhomes. Phase 1 does not, or that may have changed based off some new correspondence, affordable housing component due to the rec center. And then phase 2 will have 4 buildings, 30 of which will be affordable. The applicant expressed several times that the goal is to support homeownership in the city. The community center will be open to the public, and the applicant is looking to partner with a local nonprofit for uses of the center. The applicant is using the LERTA program, and the applicant is partnering with local NWB businesses. Of note, President Williams did express concerns over the focus of affordable apartments versus affordable townhomes. As chair, I asked that the applicant meet with council to discuss council's concerns. President Williams, myself, and Councilwoman Bowers, given her role as building and housing chair, did meet last Thursday for about 2 hours to go over the program, and then thought it best to bring in the applicant for communications at the legislative session to discuss and give us the rest of council a further overview of the project. And that happened this evening, which I thought was helpful. The applicant has met all the rules and regulations, and I would encourage my colleagues to vote yes on Resolution 78. Next, the committee discussed Resolution 81. Resolution 81 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development plan to rehabilitate the existing building on the principal parcel at 2101 North 6th Street into a mix of uses to consolidate 13 existing parcels into 5 distinct lots and to develop a vacant lot in the adjoining block. Director Knight did give an overview of the project. The applicant was represented by Andy Levin, who was a civil engineer. Council then began to ask questions, but after a few questions, it was evident that Mr. Levin would not be able to answer the questions. So we invited the applicant to come to this legislative session. We'll have a breakup session to discuss the resolution with the applicant. So we'll look to do that here in the near future. That concludes my report, President Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. We now move on to report from Chair Majors on the work session of December 7, 2021. Mr. Majors, are you ready with your report?
I am, President Williams. On Tuesday, December 7th, I'll have a second report for the public hearing. So I'll start with the public hearing, which was a public hearing of the Public Works Committee to consider Bill 17 of 2021, an ordinance vacating and striking from the official map of the city of Harrisburg 2 unnamed grocers alleys within the block bound by North 3rd Street, Clinton Street, Logan Street, and Hamilton Street, pursuant to Chapter 3-109 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Harrisburg. Present before the Public Works Committee was the applicant, Matt Long, and his engineer from K&W, Jeff Scheich. This vacation is necessary as they're working on their land development plan, which you heard from Councilman Mattson. And they had received all of their contact. They had been in contact with all the adjoining property owners, and then there were no issues. So I am encouraging my colleagues to consider supporting Bill 17 of 2021. Additionally, there was a Public Works Committee meeting held to consider Bill 16 of 2021, an ordinance to technically amend the Municipal Waste, Recycling, and Composting Code of Title IX of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Harrisburg. We heard from Recycling Coordinator, Mr. Chris Naif, as to the need for this update. And this is to make technical amendments so that Public Works can promulgate the regulations necessary to be in compliance with Act 101. There were some slight changes to our ordinance that needed to be were necessitated when we did the update a couple of years ago. So this is a technical amendment just to note that the promulgation of collection days is in each separate section of our code. So there's one for the municipal waste, composting, and recycling. And I encourage my colleagues to support Bill 16. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. We now move on to ordinance for first reading. We have none this evening. We then move on to ordinance for amendment. Bill 20, 2021. Mr. Petrosky, please read it into record.
Bill 20 of 2021 is an ordinance of the city of Harrisburg establishing a new part 2-1100 of the Codified Ordinances of Harrisburg entitled Responsible Contracting, establishing a governing threshold, providing for the adoption of certain procedures related to the solicitation and award certain public contracts within the city, providing for certification requirements for certain public contractors, providing for certification requirements for subcontractors on certain public contracts, and providing for certain public contract review procedures.
Mr. Mattson, I believe you have an amendment to that particular bill.
I do, President Williams. I'll read the amendment for the record. I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution. The bill, excuse me.
Second.
Read the motion.
Wait a minute, excuse me, Mr. Alex and Ms. Green and Mr. Mattson. Would you just please make the motion and then you read the amendment in, please?
Yes. Make the motion to amend
Bill 20,
Bill 20,
2021.
2021.
Second,
Second.
thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Mattson.
Okay. Part 10, the firm and all subcontractors to the firm participants in a Class A apprenticeship training program as defined below for each separate trade or classification in which it employs craft employees. The apprenticeship requirement assures that workers in each trade or craft employed are participants in or graduates of bona fide apprenticeship training programs in each trade or craft in which their services are utilized. As evidenced by the fact that the program is registered with federal or state government and has been in continuous existence for no fewer than 5 years prior to the project relating to the certification. For purposes of the Section A Class A apprenticeship program is an apprenticeship program registered with and approved by the U.S. Department of Labor or a state apprenticeship agency and has graduated apprentices to journey person status for at least 3 of the past 5 years. This may an apprenticeship program subject to the Employer Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, 29. B, to demonstrate compliance with the section, the firm shall provide with the certification list of all trades or classifications of craft employees it will employ on the project and documentation verifying its participants in a Class A apprenticeship program for each trade or classification listed.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. Any questions or comments on the motion?
For the record, Mr. Mattson, you need to move the strike lines 161 to 180 of the original bill.
To insert that.
As part of the existing motion.
Part of the
Yeah, but
existing
yeah,
motion, just move, on the record, you need to move the striking part of the existing.
Okay, I would like to move to strike the existing
Lines
Line
181 through 180.
181 and 180.
No, 161 to
161.
161 to
180.
180.
Thank you.
Questions or comments on the amendment for Bill 20? Hearing none, Mr. Petrosky, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Green, Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Amendment passes.
thank you. Moving on to ordinance for final passage. Bill 15, 2021. Mr. Petrosky, please read that into record.
Bill 15 of 2021 is an ordinance updating Chapter 2-707 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Harrisburg governing the police retirement system to provide technical amendments and incorporate the methodology for calculating final salary to assure compliance with certain internal revenue services requirements for governmental pension plans.
Any additional questions or comments on Bill 15? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Bill 15 passes.
thank you. Moving on to Bill 16.
Bill 16 of 2021 is an ordinance to technically amend the Municipal Waste Recycling and Composting Code Title 9 of the codified ordinances of the city of Harrisburg.
Any additional questions or comments on Bill 16? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
yes,
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Bill 16 passes.
Moving on to Bill 17.
Bill 17 of 2021 is an ordinance vacating and striking from the official map of the city of Harrisburg two unnamed grocers alleys within the block bounded North 3rd Street, Clinton Street, Logan Street, and Hamilton Street pursuant to Chapter 3-109 of the Codified Ordinances of the city of Harrisburg.
Any additional questions or comments on Bill 17, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
yes,
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Bill 17 passes.
Moving on to Bill 18.
Bill 18 of 2021 is an ordinance establishing the budget for the municipal government of the city of Harrisburg for the year 2022.
Any additional questions or comments, council members, on Bill 18? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels? Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
yes,
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Bill 18 passes.
Moving on to Bill 19.
Bill 19 of 2021 is an ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the city of Harrisburg, Title 5, licensing and taxation, Part 5, real estate taxes, Chapter 5-501, property tax by establishing for the year 2022 a tax levy on land and improvements and providing for the distribution of taxes levied and assessed and providing for a tax rebate for the difference between the tax due and attributable to the year 2022 tax levy over the tax due and attributable to the year 2006 tax levy for qualifying senior citizens.
Any additional questions on Bill 19, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
yes,
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Bill 19 passes.
Moving on to Bill 20 as amended.
Bill 20 of 2021 as amended is an ordinance of the city of Harrisburg establishing a Part 2-1100 of Codified Ordinances of Harrisburg entitled Responsible Contracting, establishing a government threshold, providing for the adoption of certain procedures related to the solicitation and award of certain public contracts within the city, providing for certification requirements for certain public contractors, providing for certification requirements for subcontractors and certain public contractors contracts, and providing for certain public contract review procedures.
Any additional comments on Bill 20 as amended, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
yes,
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Bill 20 as amended passes.
Moving on to resolutions, Resolution 78 of 2021.
Resolution 78 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development and subdivision plan to consolidate 21 lots and re-subdivide them into 9 lots to allow the construction of a mixed-use building featuring a community center, 12 apartment units, an accessory parking, and 1 parcel and 8 separate parcels, each accommodating a single townhouse in the square block bounded by Hamilton Street, Logan Street, Clinton Street, and North 3rd Street.
Any additional questions on Resolution 78, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
yes,
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 78 passes.
Moving on to Resolution 80.
Resolution 80, as amended, 2021, is a resolution appointing Mr. James Hobbs to serve on the zoning hearing board of the city of Harrisburg. He's an alternate member, but it was added in the resolution.
As an
so it's
alternate,
okay.
right, as an alternate. Any additional questions on Resolution 80, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels? Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
yes,
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 80 passes.
As we move on to Resolution 81, I'd ask for a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
I need a first.
So moved. So moved.
Thank you. Is the applicants here? Good evening. Good evening.
Given this is a community and economic development issue, me as chair overseeing the hearing we have here. So could you state your names for the record?
Adam Moss, 1591 Stony Mountain Way, Dauphin.
Richard Purple, 1704 Fox Hunt Lane, Susquehanna Township.
And I apologize, your respective titles with the project.
Owner of the Hudson Building.
Okay,
Architect.
okay, thank you. So Mr. Knight last week gave us at our work session an overview of the project from a government perspective regarding the regulations, but usually we like the applicant to come and just kind of provide any additional details they may have. Like you saw with Mr. Long, providing some of those information is beneficial to us and the public to understand and learn more about the project. So is there any, it's a big project, it's been a hot topic in the Uptown community. I have attended a few of the public meetings that you had. They were via Zoom, I believe, about a year ago. Obviously that's a little tough. I mean, it was safe during a pandemic, we understand that. But you know, it's tough for a lot of our folks, especially in that area that may lack internet or broadband to attend those kinds of meetings. So first thing we'd like to do is give you that opportunity to give us some of your overview, talk about the overview of the project, some of the outreach you've done to the community, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. This project has been a long time coming. Just my background with this space, I moved to Harrisburg in 2005. Part of, traveling through the city, this building has been empty for a very long time. As I kind of lived here for a while, I think this was last 2020, I was just curious about, what was happening to the building, what were the opportunities perhaps, and that, looking at the development that had been occurring in Midtown, I saw this as, that's why I called it the Atlas. This is a very important area of the city. It is where people travel in and out of. This building is I think a landmark property that, if done correctly, could really foster good growth, smart growth, and also facilitate jobs, which is important. But more so to me, this was, everyone calls me a developer. I'm not a developer. I have many other hats that I wear. This is a project that I'm working on. Had been engaged with the community. To your point, it was June 17th was the one online forum that we had done. Since then, I've been working with different groups, the HBC group, specifically County Community Action, Rise Uptown. I've done surveys and meetings that I've attended online. From there, there was a town hall on October 21st that I attended, going through there. From these groups as well, I've attended every meeting that I've been asked to the best I can. From there, answering questions and kind of the vision of this building. It's 60,000 square feet. It has been vacant for a very long time. So for our process, it was important to put in something in the space that would help this part of the city, not necessarily what I want. And from that has really developed a lot of good relationships, I believe, of conversations, sometimes hard, sometimes good, to really learn, what would be best in this space. So from there, we've kind of curated, I think, a good concept of, what we're planning on putting in there. This is 3 floors. There's actually a floor. So you have your first floor, second floor, and then there's a subfloor, all about 20,000 square feet. From that, we're working on office space, predominantly on the second floor, and then working with the various groups on, there's everything from a Reading Market style, kind of free flowing of space for shops, local shops. Our focus is a lot of Black-owned businesses. I'm very encouraged, by what we're putting together. That will really set I believe, a foundation of how projects like this should go. And I'm very excited for it to come together. Part of that involved an Rcap process that I have. This is the second time I applied for it. From there, I met with a lot of different, from the governor's office to DCED, kind of walking through how important a project like this is in Harrisburg. So I was glad to have, or honored to have won that award and to apply that to this project. I'm happy to answer questions. I apologize last week. I only had notice. It was like 20 hours. So I'm here now though, to answer anything I can. And I don't know if I missed anything.
Yeah, I'd like to just add a couple of things about the building. As Adam said, it is 3 stories, 60,000 square feet. And I'm sure all of you know the building. It's a huge building up there on an important corner in the city. For many years, it sat vacant, boarded up. And, to have this opportunity now to bring life back to that corner of the city, I think is a great opportunity for everyone. I know that earlier there were public comments. Some of those public comments I heard before during the Planning Commission meetings, which we attended earlier this year. I did want to just say the building permit applications did describe what the estimated cost of the demolition was. And of course, the building permit application that's in right now does also include the estimated cost of construction, which is approximately $5 million. The next step in all of this, right, is to get the building permit approved from the building department. So we have had discussions with, of course, Jeffrey Knight, but also Ann Montgomery about what we're doing with the building, obviously meeting the requirements of the building code, and also any other concerns which the Planning Commission had and Jeffrey Knight had.
Is there anything else? So procedurally, I think it's important that we talk about one issue. There was candidly just a series of miscommunications on the city side. And I don't know, Mr. Grover, you want to touch on some of the technical pieces to that?
Sure. So zoning and building is guided in Pennsylvania under the Municipal Planning Code, which is how our Planning Commission operates in our zoning board. And it covers municipalities all across Pennsylvania. It has requirements so that applicants eventually get moved along, I assume, because they used to not get moved along in some municipalities. So there's a 120-day window from the time the application is submitted to the municipality for which to be done the governing body's approval. That is after a planning commission approval. It's 120 days from the initial application to the planning commission. This application came in on August 4th to the planning commission, or to the planning agency for the planning commission. The first public meeting that was scheduled would then be September. It has to be in at least 15 days before a public meeting. It would have been too late for the August meeting. The first public meeting in September was canceled because of Hurricane Ida. Everything was shut down. They then tried to have a special meeting, but because of an advertising error, the meeting was not allowed to be held. A special meeting in September. That took this meeting to the monthly meeting of October the 3rd, or October the 6th, I forget but the first week there, the meeting did not conclude that night, the public hearing, which happens at Planning Commission, where, if there's public input, if there's other things to say, they send the applicant back out with questions to come back with answers. So that pushed us all the way to the November meeting of the Planning Commission, where it was finally voted on and approved. The package then came down, so that the first time the council could see this was the November 23rd, with the resolution to approve it. Technically, the 120 days ran on December 2nd. There was not another voting meeting in between the introduction on November 23rd and December 2nd. It's not unusual in the sense that council from time to time, there will be an application that passes the 120 days, and like tonight, still hears from the applicant on the project, because it's important to the applicant, it's important to the city, it's important to the council and to the public to be heard on these things. So the council is not prohibited from voting on the matter, but technically it is deemed approved. I assume the applicant wishes to have the support of the council because they're sitting here in front of you tonight. And the project, they have the Rcap money that came from it, which is about half the value of the estimated construction costs they just discussed. And they obviously will have to come up with a match for the rest of that money. But that is how technically under the planning code, it is technically deemed approved. For reasons I'm not going to go into from my own experience. There's reasons sometimes deemed approved doesn't finish the project for developers or builders, and the actual approvals and signatures matter for the process that goes smoothly in the future. So it is my understanding that they're here to request the council approve this, and it's on the agenda tonight for that vote under this resolution 82.
So that was a lot of legalese. So I'm just going to say in layman's terms.
Oh, sorry.
there was a series of events and a few errors on the city government side. So we didn't get to review this in time. And after a certain period of time, it automatically gets approved and the project has automatically been approved. So I don't know if the applicant would like to add anything to the importance of, I don't fault you. We've looked at a detailed timeline of the errors, but just how important is it for you that we vote on this?
I think very important. This is a big project for the city and an exciting one. This is a good conversation to begin, and, hopefully continue as, the next 6 to 9 months. We're starting right away. So this is we're heading, hopefully, getting it going right away. And this is important on a host of fronts of the workers that are involved, and the tenants that will go into the building.
So if council were to vote no, would that delay your plan?
Obviously, yeah.
All right, start with questions. So can you highlight some of the key takeaways from some of your community engagement meetings? I know I attended one, but I couldn't attend all of them. So what was some of the feedback you got from the community? Some of the good stuff and then get into some of the bad, negative stuff.
I think the good stuff is this has been a good learning experience on my behalf of meeting a lot of people. I think the city of Harrisburg, there hasn't been a lot of conversations one-on-one where I'm standing in a parking lot at 9 o'clock at night talking to members of the public. That's rare. And I've done it, and I am hopefully going to continue doing it because it is important to have a voice that they can, no one knows me. So going in there, just trying to introduce my background, who I am, and then listening. I have a lot to learn with a lot of injustices that have happened. A lot of opportunities, though, is what I've been focusing on. So that's really the beauty of, I guess, the co-op groups that have formed, those relationships on like what this space could actually mean for the neighborhood, for the citizens of Harrisburg. That's been the positive takes of it. I also think there's a lot of frustration, and we've heard about it, some of the comments regarding the dumping and other things. And I can go through the items that I've tried to, as an individual, come in and listen and hear and try to do some actionable things that I can do on my end to try to facilitate what's actually happening and to encourage, how to stop it. So from there, I think I'm coming into an environment that I'm seeing it or feeling it and hearing it, and it's mostly been built up. I take things personally a lot, so I've been really trying to learn that this is a bigger thing that's going on, and it's a part of a conversation that I hope I'm an outlet to allow us to really talk about some of the tough things that are happening, but also the solutions to them. There's a lot of good things going on in Harrisburg right now, and I'm excited about the next 4 years and 8 years. And we have an opportunity, though, and that's another reason I called it the Atlas. I think this can set a foundation for how projects should happen, not only in the community, but how we're going to build it. So I'm hoping that this can form as kind of a sheet or a list that we can work with on other projects that come through the city.
And then there was talk of a survey. Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit and sort of your process and
yeah, this has been a hot topic I think there's actually 4 to 5 different surveys that are from different groups and entities out in the community right now regarding the space. I know the co-op group, I don't have the updated, it's not my survey, but these groups do have the results that we, I believe on October 21st, did go over with the community, those results that we had to date. I think the food desert's a big phrase that's used a lot. People are looking for, good, healthy foods. That's a big one. But also a place that people can go for. I think businesses and to feel safe. And that's been a lot of the feedback. I'm happy, though, to reach out to the co-op group and pass that off to council, of those results.
And then you mentioned you plan on providing the space for a lot of Black-owned businesses. Care to elaborate on that and your outreach and what that will look like, some of the work you've done so far?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a priority of mine. I think part of this is not even just, so it's part of building the building, but then providing the space that a lot of businesses can come into. And there's some foundation tenants or pillar tenants that we're looking for. So for instance, having a local bank that can have discussions with people that have ideas. And now we have this space that allows them maybe to do a small loan. We're able to subsidize a little bit of the space cost where they're able to test out their ideas. For instance, one of the concepts is in the basement level to have a group share kitchen. So if someone has a restaurant idea, they're not expecting to come in with $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to do a build out. We have an opportunity where they can come in, see if they're passionate about it, come up with a good project, good idea, move out into a space within the building, and then be able to have an outlet to actually go get the funding for a standalone building in the area of Harrisburg. So for me, this is like, it's not an incubator, but it's a way that we can really create foundation points of very important business growth for people that really haven't had, I guess, the right process before. And that's what I'm excited working with the groups on.
I'll ask one last question, just because like my colleagues. So you did receive an Rcap grant that kicks off a series of regulations, prevailing wage, and MWBE participation. You already talked a little bit about the MWBE piece. But in terms of, some of that are the MWBE businesses or contractors, maybe just touch on who you're working with or who you plan to work with and elaborate on that.
Yeah, this is important to me. I've been working with Tremaine Terry, A to Z Diversity Solutions, just kind of walking through the process. And then on top of that, ProRank. In fact, today we did I extended actually the deadline of our kind of our needs of the building and people putting in bids. We extended that to a walkthrough where we had 8 different minority contractors come to the building today. So that was not part of what I had initially intended, but the goal is to provide all the opportunities for these groups and individuals to really ask questions and go through the process. And our CAP process, I don't even know. I brought in Gem Group, who's overseeing it. There is a very stringent pathway of asking questions and how you submit bids. So for me, the goal of this is to really increase the percentages. Doing research on the city projects that hit 7-8%, that's viewed as being a success. For me, the goal is to hit much higher on that. And I'm committed to that. And part of that is the foundation of actually submitting the bids. Without the bids going in, we can't award it to minority contractors. So part of this is really that education and taking the extra time to ensure that they know the process and that they can put competitive bids in place. Tremaine is going to be helping on that process on the back end of reviewing kind of how the submissions came in. And, our goal is really to make this the standard in Harrisburg on new projects.
And then it would set off a prevailing wage, correct?
It is based off of prevailing wage.
Okay. And I know that there's a lot of overlap with our LERTA in the regulations. Are you planning on using LERTA for this project, given that it's?
I believe that is correct, but I would have to look into that a little bit deeper. So
Let us know if you're planning on utilizing the LERTA program, just so we know if you're not using it. Kind of curious why, since it's so much overlap with the Rcap grant recognition. That's it for me. I'll open it up, and I will start to my left with Councilwoman Bowers.
Thank you, Chair Madsen. Thank you for being here tonight to answer our questions. Let's see. So in reference to the Black-owned businesses that you mentioned, how many businesses are you looking to house or offer space to?
Yeah, the co-op group, some of them are here tonight. The goal is as many as we can. So our timeline is, we've been working on this for over a year. So this is not, like as of last week. A lot of this has been going on for a year's time. And I'm hoping that it's certainly more than 10 that are coming into the space. And I believe that's everyone's intention, that eventually it is, almost a fully, minority owned building, to be frank.
Okay. You mentioned the RACP money. What is the total amount of public money that has been awarded for this project to date?
So the award for the RACP was $2.5 million.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, just a comment. I really hope that in reading some of the reports from the Planning Commission meeting and the zoning meeting, I really hope that you are able to resolve whatever issues are present between you and whoever else is involved with your project and the Camp Curtin Neighbors United. I know that as reading, it seems as if there was some miscommunication or lack of communication throughout this process. And I hope that you're able to improve the working relationship between the neighbors and however your project transforms. So that'll be very important moving forward for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Green?
Thank you, Councilman Madsen. I don't have that many questions. I had the opportunity to meet with you previously after the planning commission meeting and actually tour the building and get an idea of the layout and some of the conversations we've been having with the community. I've also met with members of the community and listened to some of their concerns. And I would agree with Councilwoman Bowers that there does seem to be some sort of miscommunication or lack of communication. But just what are some of the ways that you try to address some of the if you have, excuse me, some issues that the community has had or brought to you or brought forth in public meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the dumping one is one that's not just the spot that, you know, occurred that involved DEP walkthroughs that I've attended. And I'll give an instance of that specific one that's near this property. I had a meeting with a member of the community, kind of informed me that this was going on since 2017. This isn't like a day thing. This has been going on for a long time in this spot. So from there, kind of walking through solutions to it. And I went out, reached out to who actually owned the property of this land, asked to privately fence it in, which I did. That was my goal to, one, stop it, to allow an investigation to occur of the material and where it's coming from. And to me, that was one thing that I could do quickly, and it was done within 10 days of that conversation. From there, you know, we now have assessed, you know, what is happening or what isn't happening. That is an important issue that is triggered, you know, throughout the community, and it's important. And so from that, you know, we've been working on that specific instance. It looks like they cleared the material away now at this point. But this is just one example of many. So really the goal of this is to really, how do we stop this? Again, that was a quick solution on my end, just to fence it in. There needs to be more game planning than that. So that's one instance, you know, that we've been dealing with, that I directly, you know, quickly tried to work with the community on, to allow us time to figure out how best to deal with it.
All right. That's the only question I have. Once again, I agree with my colleague that I believe the lines of communication, they seem like they may have been more open in the beginning, whether just getting busy has closed things down some, or you know, just dealing with the project, whatever it is. I think that opening up the lines of communication a little more with the community at large, having more public meetings hosted by yourself and your company would be a great idea to really get that community involvement and energy back into this project.
Thank you. President Williams?
I don't have any questions at this point.
Councilman Allen?
I'll also ask mine. I think it was an important point to be able to respond to the community. I mean, we hear public comment a lot, as I'm sure you can quite imagine. But in terms of the development, in terms of impact to neighborhoods, it's important to make sure that the communication is clear, regular, and ongoing. Because your success in the overall completion of the project depends on the community's support of that project. So Ash had asked my question, so I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you. Council Majors?
Yes, thank you for being here. So again, just so I'm clear, I think when we had our brief meeting last week regarding Resolution 81, I believe the engineer cited that there was maybe one establishment that is already contracted in terms of potentially being a tenant. Are there any other tenants lined up at this point currently?
There are not.
Okay. In terms of the organization that you're working with, HBC and HABC, can you just say what those acronyms are for the public?
The Harrisburg Building Collective, and then HABC, I think, is a derivative. It was Harrisburg Atlas Building Collective. I think, I don't believe these are official in the sense of exact, but Harrisburg Building Collective. And then there is a new co-op group that is formed. I'm not sure on that exact acronym.
Okay. Would you happen to know any timeline as to how long these groups have been established? Are they brand new? They're brand new organizations?
No, these were formed from this project occurring. So as we had outreach with the community. This was groups that have formed to work within the building space. So they were created specifically off of this. There is a larger plan that now has kind of worked through where there are some other ideas that they have throughout the community. I think 5 other projects that they're going to be focusing on. So it's kind of a group of leaders and business owners in the area.
Okay, when you mentioned about the survey, and I know you don't have all the data in front of you, would you happen to know roughly how many people responded to the survey? Just to give me a sense of, or is there anyone from any of those organizations that can speak to, that you wouldn't mind having come up just to speak to that? Because we talk about community engagement, and via the planning commission meetings and other things, I think there's some sort of, there's a bit of a dispute in terms of what the outreach has been. So I'm just trying to garner what some of those numbers are in terms of that outreach.
Absolutely.
Lower the microphone so the public can hear you.
Good evening. My name is Elise Irvis, and I am a part of the group that is forming, plan to be a single tenant that essentially is a master lease agreement for the entire space. And I've been to city council, I guess, a few times. That if you all are familiar with the concept of La Cultura, the idea of sharing space and resources, of business incubation. There will be tenants. As far as the survey, there were, I believe, approximately 60 responses, 71 responses to the survey. It's still available virtually. We partnered directly with Camp Curtin Neighborhood United to distribute, and Young Professionals of Color to distribute that to create the survey and distribute it. It's a part of the UPMC grant that Fair Housing was awarded. And so very much a community outreach effort. Camp Curtin was directly involved with that, to Joyce's point earlier. And then on the business development side, La Cultura has played a major role in the development of the outreach. As far as minority businesses, we are working closely as well with ProRank on the development, the contracting process. So I don't know if you had any other specific questions.
Yeah. Well, I guess to that point then, for the public, would you mind just telling us the email address or website where people can potentially fill out the survey if they're still interested?
Sure. There is a Facebook group, the Harrisburg Building Collective is the Facebook group, and the link is posted there. That's the first place I can think of. Otherwise, if you are a business who's interested in the space or interested in further conversation outside of the survey, you can also message the owners of that Facebook group or myself. Again, I run a micro business incubator called La Cultura, and we do various programs and one-on-one support for minority owned and early stage entrepreneurs.
Okay, thank you. And then thank you. And then Ms. Mouse, if you can work with us or get it to the city clerk so we can also share the web address, because while Facebook is a great tool, not everyone uses social media. So if we can actually get a link that we can share with our community. One of the things that has come up several times during city council meetings, and we've heard from residents, is about the permitting process, right? So work has, everyone knows that work has begun. Can you just give us a brief, if you had that, the timeline as to when some of those when the permits were pulled and what work is currently being done on the permit? I believe it's just demo at this point.
Yeah, just demolition. And I believe that started in February of this year, February.
Yeah, and we submitted a demolition permit along with demolition drawings, structural drawings, and have worked closely with the city. And also had Gem Group was the construction manager that also helped to oversee that work, and gave weekly reports. Then secondly, the building permit for the rest of the building, that was just recently submitted. I want to say maybe about 2 weeks ago that we submitted that permit application is still under review by the building department.
Okay, so then, just so I'm clear, no work outside of the demo has been done on the building to date?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yep. And the overall number of potential tenants, based upon your building design, how many, businesses are you looking to be able to locate within that facility?
I think working out how it's, some smaller footprints to grow into and then some bigger ones. I anticipate 25 is probably a very legit number of what it would entail. 60,000 square feet, there's some larger tenants that we're looking at, but also some smaller.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, but I think to all my colleagues' points, I think, working with our community to ensure that, these types of activities go forward is important. And, COVID has made public outreach a little bit difficult, but if we can continue to work to try to find ways to engage the public, not just at this point, but as you're going through the process, the more we can do there would be important. And then I guess, well, no further questions. I may have one more, but
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Daniels?
Yeah, can you give us some examples of other projects that you completed that you can see?
This is my first development. This is a project, like I said, I'm kind of learning the process and getting into it. It's not my occupation. This is more of it's an opportunity to do good and to really, I think I like these type of challenges, and it has been a challenge, but I think these are the things that I'm excited to hopefully continue to do throughout the city of Harrisburg.
And you said this is about a $5 million project. And right now you have $2.5 million from the state and about the 300 and something thousand mortgage. Where are you getting the difference to finish the project?
Yeah, part of an Rcap is that you actually have to have the entire amount and then it gets reimbursed. So I have a private loan that covers the amount of the project.
And that's separate from it's not a secured loan, that's what you're saying.
My loan, yeah, it's a bank loan.
And could you give me a little bit of a clearer understanding of your relationship with Maverick, which is our lobbying firm?
Yeah, I had left in 2018 from that firm. So I had worked for, not Maverick is two different companies. I worked for not the strategy side, which is the contract with the city. I work for what's called Red Maverick, which is a different company within that umbrella. So I had left them into the end of 2018.
Because my understanding is you work the arm, from what Mr. Zaborni said, that there was a clear Chinese wall between the lobbying side and the campaign side, right? So
I'm not
not
part of
on the lobbying side.
That's
You're
correct.
on
I
the
am on. I had
campaign
never with the lobby.
Okay. So I guess there are two questions I have for the city. Can Mr. Knight or Mr. Davis explain how Mr. Mouse they were able to gain possession of the property? Because I remember there were multiple people prior to this instance with interest, but so I just need, if someone could give us a little bit of clarity or give me a little bit of clarity on that.
Sure. Good evening, council. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, if you can give me some clarity on how they secured possession, because that was a property that had been vacant for a very long time, and it needed city kind of support process-wise to be able to transfer title, right?
Not to my knowledge, no.
There was no city involvement in the title transfer.
Not to my knowledge, no. I'm not aware of any if there were.
I think the question is, who did they acquire the building from? That would.
I get,
right. The law bureau certainly didn't do any deeds or anything related to that property, and I'm unaware of us owning it. So.
And yeah, I have to say, I don't know what to think, because first of all, this is the first time I'm hearing that the application is approved by because of our delays. So can someone, I know you explained the timeline, but were we alerted that?
There's an email to the council on November the 19th advising that if the council did not act by December the 2nd, that it would be deemed approved. It was sent by my office. And I forwarded it a second time. This was before it was introduced. That was it. So it was.
On behalf of the council, I'm going to take up for us.
I'm not.
It wasn't our fault.
I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying
Okay, so make
that's why
sure,
we
make it clear to the public
That's why
that it came after the fact.
that's why we did it in case
Okay,
council want to
okay.
have a
But
special
I want to
meeting.
make sure that they understand that.
Sure.
And if I knew that that was going to be a problem, then you, like always, you ask for a special legislative session. And I've kind of done that. So I want to make sure that the public understands. I'm sorry, Ms. Daniels, go ahead.
So, you know, I have to say, I reading the article on the Rcap funds, I'm just a little bit troubled. There's obviously nothing we could do about this, but I'm troubled that you work for a company that represented the city, and then you were in a bidding process with the city, which is the client on the lobbying side. So that, for example, right, you receive your entity, which it's not you, it's a kind of investment corporation that you have, right?
Yes.
Right. So that received a total of $4.7 million in Rcap funds.
No.
No, so the beach house is not with that same entity.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm confused. What was that again?
Yes, so your entity received 4.7 million in Rcap funds altogether.
It did not, no. 2.5 is what I received.
So that's 2.5 for the Hudson building,
Yes.
plus 2.2 for the beach house.
There was no RCAP for the beach house.
That's what the article, the Berg News kind of says. And then, the entities that didn't receive the funds, among the entities that didn't receive the funds was the city of Harrisburg. So what I'm saying is the ethics of this relationship between the city and the lobbying firm and your development entity, and then this lack of due diligence from the law bureau just rubs me really wrong, the really wrong way. So I understand that there's nothing we can do about this, but the way this has been presented, it's been presented very poorly, very poorly. And I know that if I receive a pecuniary gain from information I had from a client that was represented, I would be disbarred. If I hadn't been clear with some kind of waiver of conflict or whatever. And Mr. Zaborni had reassured us that there's absolutely no way that the campaign arm was getting information.
I have left there in 2018, so I haven't worked for them in 3 years, over 3 years.
Right, and this property has been vacant for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
So it's not like
purchased
it's
in
information.
2020.
Yeah, it's information that you get. When was our relationship with Maverick started?
But the building was independently owned by a group out of Philadelphia, so just.
Yeah, so the timing of it, the ethics of it, it just, the appearance of impropriety is very, very high. So I just have issues with how everything went down, and I have issues with the due diligence on the part of the city in this situation. So I don't have any more questions. I was hoping that you would be able to answer in a way that would reassure me that this was all kosher. But I don't really feel reassured. And there's nothing you could do about that. So that's it for me.
Thank you. So because a lot of new information has been shed light past the previous public comment, we'd like to open it up for public comment from the public. And we will start to the right. Oh, well.
Yeah, and then.
Yeah.
I would just like to respectfully ask that the council still votes, because I don't think that what Solicitor Grover said about Pennsylvania municipalities code and the respective time limits is correct, because what I haven't attended exactly every single planning commission, zoning hearing board meeting since the summer, and basically had to learn the entire process. And if there were any continuances and the applicant agreed to an extension of the time limits, then that would extend the 120-day period. And I am not quite sure that the 120-day time limit applies to land development plans. I think it only applies to variances. Thank you.
I was in the middle. I'll start again to the right. Any public comment? Middle? Left? Approach the mic.
Just to clarify, Councilwoman Daniels, the building was privately sold. It was never owned by the city. The Hudson building was never owned by the city. It was a private sale to him. There was no process set forth on that. And as Adam clarified, there was no public funding for the beach house at all. He's only received that 2.5 million. There was just a lot of back and forth. I just want to make sure that's clear that it was a private sale.
Well, I'm just going by the article in terms of
As far as I know, Ms. Daniels, the only project funded in the city by the Rcap, by the governor's authority, was this project. I think all other applications within the city boundaries were rejected.
Yeah, I thought it came up with one. So
They're-
this whole
they're-
article
that's
is
for their
fine
Steelton
because
facility, I
Hamilton
think.
got one and it said-
That was still.
Right.
With all due respect, I'm not sure we should list the Berg as a complete source of information for us to be getting factual information, but it's still reporting by a private person at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and also I'd like to bring it back to this Hudson project. Beach house is a whole separate matter that I do think we do need to have a conversation with, but I think like focus it on this land development plan and rules and regulations associated with it. Are there any other comments from my colleagues? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua Barker. I was newly brought into this as part of the group. We've been working with Adam. First, I'd like to say that we should be excited about this project. From the history of Harrisburg, I think that we should give new opportunities a chance to flourish before we attack it. Some people may say I've only been here 5 years, but I think this is an opportunity to take away an eyesore. Now, since being here, there's been violence and just different things in that area since living there. I've been actively speaking to many youth in the area, just dealing with some certain things. I don't see certain groups coming out when we're dealing with stuff like that. I just want to say overall, if we're going to talk about different things in that area, we have to address everything. The violence, the drug dealing. And I think projects like this, we can start to address those things. By working with this gentleman on ways we can help the community, help the youth, and other things to address in the uptown area. As I said, I've been working diligently as a homeowner to get residents together, to do different projects, to make uptown a place that we can all enjoy. So I think we should work together, whichever groups we're with, on ways we can make this area a successful area. You know, and I want to congratulate the new mayor. And I think we have a new day and time that we can work on things together to make Uptown a place and a destination we want to be. So I'm just coming up here to have a positive light on things throughout the city and see how we can help this corner look like somewhere we want to go to as a group and build it up. So that's just my little take on the corner of McClay.
Councilman Majors?
Yeah, just because I know one of my, I apologize, I'll let the public go first before I say anything else.
Is there any other public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Joyce Vanderhorst Gamble, President of Camp Curtin Neighborhood United. It's not the question about the project. It's the question on the process, how he's accomplishing this goal. What he did with the beach house, which like popped up out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden we had a beach house and then we had a ceremony, and it's between the mini golf course and the playground, which we had a discussion about, which I was totally against because it is interfering with the children's play area. Okay, so that shows us that, you know, he doesn't care about the children. So you have to take in consideration the bathhouse, how that was presented, and how he probably will deal with the Hudson building. And that's where we came with the conclusion, because it's like, you know, do you really care about the youth in our neighborhood? Because what you did over there on City Island. We have enough crime. We have sex trafficking. We have drug dealings on Woodbine. We have kids going to the YMCA. And you didn't mention in your report that you want to put some kind of lounge in the basement. So, you know, you have to be truthful. That's all we want from Adam. Okay, tell us what you want and be truthful. Own up for your mistakes and let's keep it moving.
Majors? Oh, is there any other public comment? Oh. Chris? Oh.
I just wanted to, as someone who's involved in the communication between Adam and the community and the business development community, my question for future in a future tense, right, is really to say to the city, all of the players involved in that and those processes, how can community groups like ourselves, right, we're forming together separate entities, separate existing entities coming together to say, hey, you know, if money's pouring in, these are the vessels it should go through. How can we lean on the city's processes and systems, like, you know, for example, minority participation and things like that? Like, is there a way that community group, are there certain rules or anything that maybe it would be something that would be proposed after the fact, but nonetheless, I think that would really help community groups like CCNU and the one that I'm working with.
I want to refocus this conversation again because we're getting away from the point. The point, Mr. Mouse and friends, is not that it is not necessarily about all these other small things. It is about a process of transparency that people feel is lacking. That's what it's been about. And to Elise's point, you know, I think that, and it's not just on you, it's on a lot of different processes that people feel have been shrouded over the times. And that is why we are so glad with the new administration that we feel like there will be some more transparency and access, right? And I do believe from all the conversations I've had with various people involved that there does need to be some bridge mending, not just bridge building. And also there needs to be more intentional ways of providing access. I fully, young professionals of color have been deeply involved in this process. I fully support everything Elise is saying. But I think we are spot on where we're heading with how do we get more transparency in these processes? And how do we create the access? I think one thing that's difficult is watching over and over again, the majority of people in the city are usually not the ones who are heading these projects for lack of access to funding and other things. And I think that's a big thing. So I'm glad there are people like Elise. I'm glad there are people speaking up, but I want us to refocus the conversation. How do we get transparency? How do, and not just with the what Adam plans to do with the building, but up until the point of getting the building, of having the, we're hearing about emails that were answered, we're hearing about other pieces. So how do we get that transparency so people don't feel like they are left on the sidelines when these decisions, especially city people who've been here for generations, don't feel like they're left on the sidelines. It's a great project. That's not the problem. The problem is transparency. The problem is access. The problem is access to all the things we were talking about throughout this meeting, access to funding, access for Black and brown business owners, all those different things, not just with Adam, but for the entire process. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay.
It's really quick. My name is Tammy Dykes, and I've been involved with this project since about March of this year. And my role as a real estate agent, a local real estate agent, is to increase access to prime real estate for tenants of La Catora. So essentially, we could have, because we're working with micro businesses, we can have about 40 people in the entire building. I think about 16 micro businesses and then 25 standard commercial spaces, including medical facility, banking, restaurants, lounges. But just so that's clear that the purpose of our involvement is to create access and opportunity to prime real estate to entrepreneurs.
Just to add some historical context to this, just because someone gets a grant for redevelopment does not mean that the community is actually going to benefit from that. So that's important to remember. And I was reminded of that this week because I was looking into some things around City Island and read the grant proposal that created the stadium, which was all public monies that went into that. And based on the amount of poverty that we have and had at the time, that created the stadium and many of the things that we have on the City Island. And we used a nonprofit, Tri-County Community Commission, put $1 million into that. Just think in $1980, what could have been done if that $1 million would have been used for something other than building a stadium. I mean, we're talking about a building, because I've lived here, like I'm older than dirt now. So I've lived here longer than most of you who have been up to the microphone tonight. Not that your comments don't matter, but just that the particular community that we're talking about has been through a lot of trauma in 35 years, 40 years. And I'm not sure this starts to address that trauma, and especially when one doesn't follow the rules and you're not being transparent. So let's just think about that.
Okay. Any other public comment? Being none, Mr. Major?
Yeah, I just had a brief follow-up just so we can get some timeline information for sake of transparency. So just as a member of council, and Neil can correct me if I'm wrong, the relationship began with the city engaging a lobbyist in 2018.
Long before 28. I forget what
But in
year.
terms of that's the specific lobbyist.
I forget what year we started. Was
Yeah, it was either
17
2017 or
18
2018 we engaged. I know we went through a process to find a lobbyist to help the city when we were dealing with our financial hardships. So your relationship with Maverick as in larger, as the umbrella organization ended in what month?
I left December of 2018, January
Of
of 2019, yeah.
Okay. The acquisition of the Hudson building from the private entity, as we all note here, the city did not have any relationship with the entity that was selling the building, to my understanding. When was that the purchase of made?
I think a final May of 2020.
Okay. And then in terms of the access to capital, as Mr. Mouse noted, we have a Rcap grant, which is a state grant that has a process. And my understanding is the rest is a private loan to the holding group or
A commercial
loan,
from a
excuse
bank,
me, a commercial bank loan in the amount of, is it the matching?
You have to do 5 and then you
Okay,
can get reimbursed.
okay.
And it may be more. Some of the build out costs and things may increase. This is kind of our estimate.
Right, okay, that's the estimate. And then in terms of the question we did ask about public dollars, we know that are you looking to seek any additional public funds for the development of the building?
I had filled out, I'm not sure. I personally don't have, my staff kind of outlined all the things that we had applied for. Like I said, we did not get awarded it last year. So we did have some applications for different items, and I don't know exactly what those were. So there might be things that are pending. Nothing that I'm aware of though.
Okay, thank you. And you're looking to utilize LRTA or any other city, any other revenue sources that could potentially be derived through the city of Harrisburg at this point?
The only thing with LRTA, and I apologize that I recognize the name. I'm not sure if we had applied or not. That would have to go back and look at this.
So the LRTA application is literally part of the application for the building permit. It's just on there.
Right, it's
So
just
if
on
you
there.
qualify on the other side, you qualify on the other side. So the building permit will trigger that.
Okay, when if and when they submit the building permit has been submitted just recently and you're still waiting approval and review. Okay. All right, thank you. I'm just trying to make sure we're establishing timelines that, so it was over a year after your dissolution with the Maverick that the purchase of that building was made.
Over a year and a half, yeah.
Daniels, did you have?
Yes, I just wanted to add a little bit more to that timeline. 2017, the city was talking about trying to secure ownership of that building so that it could be transferred to a potential buyer to develop it. So in 2017, so the decision was made not to do that, but obviously the lobbying firm then had access somehow. That's what it looks like. I don't know if that's what it looks like. It had access to that kind of information.
Let's be careful not to draw suppositions without facts. I mean, I feel like we're going to a very weird territory.
Well, the timeline is, this is the applicant and they're presenting themselves here.
Right, but you're adding, do you have facts or not? You're an
Yes,
attorney, you know.
I have minutes from May 2017.
Okay, but you're drawing a supposition based on third-party source information.
That's city documents.
No, you
That's
have no idea if there's a
city
direct connection there. You're
documents.
trying to draw a
I
supposition.
don't know that, and it's my job to ask, and it's
Right.
my job to find
Right,
out.
but you're supposing and like.
I am
ask the question.
asking.
Ask the question.
Even
Mr. Allett, and Mr. Allett, please let Ms. Daniels finish. I don't want you back and forth. Okay, let her finish and then you'll have an opportunity. to say. Go ahead, Ms. Daniels.
Well, I was just adding to the record that in May of 2017, the city was having those discussions around that property. It just so happened that you were still there at Maverick, and then in 2018 you left, and then you purchased and whatever happened afterwards. This does not look good. I can't prove that you all did anything unethical, but it does not look ethical.
I just work for a different company though, so to be clear, I'm not part of the entity. I don't do any lobbying. Never
Yeah,
have.
and these were issues I asked Mr. Zaborni about specifically because Maverick does have the two arms. And this is not with you, but at the time, there were other issues related to the potential lack of a Chinese wall.
I will say
in
on the record,
organization.
I had no understanding, knowledge of any of what you're mentioning.
Yeah, and you're coming, what's happening is you're coming into a story. Right? You're coming into a set of facts. So you come in whenever it is you purchase the property.
2020 of May.
Right. But there's the entities you're involved with and the timeline of access to information overlap enough that it does not look good.
I just genuinely, I love the building and I had driven by it so many years that it had been empty. I had no understanding of anyone trying to purchase or not purchase the space. I had actually tried and was denied from the entity in January, February. COVID happened. So kind of the timeline of that, it just.
And this is why all of the actions from the city look really bad too. It's not just you, because if we had been diligent, if we had been, given an actual real hearing here today, right, then it would all feel better. It would all be clearer, more transparent. It's okay if someone who has a pre-existing relationship with the city comes in and wants to improve a building. All of that is fine. But it's the process and the lack of transparency on both sides, because trust me, Mr. Zaborni has already answered my questions as well on the lobbying side. But on the city side, this just looks really problematic. But that's not additional. The additional fact is that in May 17, I can document that the city was discussing this property and potentially acquiring it so that we could transfer the ownership and opted not to do that.
Anything else? Alec, would you like to?
No, I mean, the only thing I'll add is I feel like that's a stretch. Like, I feel like you can ask the question, but I mean, we're making suppositions based on what the city was going to do and what someone who made a private purchase later did. I just think that's kind of it's a leap, and it's an unfair leap that I don't think we've applied that same standard to anybody else.
Before this even starts, I appreciate spirited back and forth. Appreciate both of your views, but given the hour, I would like some of our other colleagues to maybe chime in, and then I'd like to give my recommendation as to moving forward as chair. So, open it up.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Mattson. I guess I understand the process. I understand the look of it. I understand some of the questions. I guess I kind of look at it, or I guess I'm struggling with the fact that we're sitting here and it's already deemed approved. And that's the problem that I struggle with. It's like, I can vote yes, no, or maybe so. At the end of the day, it's deemed approved. And from the city's perspective, how do we let this happen? How do we let something with so much public comment slip through the cracks? And I mean, I'll take it back to the planning commission meeting. I sat in this exact same seat and we had a very spirited discussion about why we weren't going to proceed with voting on it that meeting, because we had just gotten the traffic study the night before. Well, the city itself had only gotten the traffic study the night before. And we refused to vote on it, not having enough time for the city engineer or the planning commission to review over that information. During that time, had it been explained that, well, if you don't vote on it, I believe it was Mr. Moss who was questioning whether it would be able to be voted on by city council by the end of the year. Not once did someone from the city go, well, if you don't vote on it tonight and it gets continued to November and it's not voted on immediately by city council, then it passes the 120-day mark and it's deemed approved. That right there changes the entire trajectory, right? Planning commission could have asked for a special meeting. Like, there are many things that could have happened before it even came to city council. During that meeting, I explained to you why I wasn't comfortable voting on it, especially because you had plenty of time to get us the traffic study that was supposed to be ready for the September meeting that was canceled. So I had conversation with you about that then, but I would say from the city's perspective, the fact that this slipped through the cracks it's completely ridiculous. I mean, I don't have any other words for it. I understand that we are understaffed, but please don't let me miss that part of it, that there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of work, maybe more work than usual placed on the limited staff that we do have. And so I thank you for your work, but how do we make for sure this doesn't happen? If it can be something as simple as every application for a variance, every application for a land development plan comes with a paper timeline attached to it, so we know exactly when that date runs out, it's plain and simple, then it's in our eyes as well. We can't have the excuse of, we didn't know that it was going to be deemed approved, and until the email come out, had no idea that we were running up against that deadline so closely. So it's our responsibility as a city. We ask developers to come correct. We have to make for sure we're coming correct as well, because now we're sitting here as a council with the responsibility to vote on something when our vote is deemed null and void at this point. So I kind of feel like, sure, let's go ahead and vote on it. But voting on it is kind of like you're voting, vote your heart, vote your spirit. But at the end of the day, you can continue on, right? At the end of the day, it's deemed approved. He would love to have our official seal of approval, the sign, the signatures and all that. But let's be honest, if he didn't show up tonight, it wouldn't matter. You know, we're considering it a courtesy that he showed up, because at this point, it didn't matter. He already has our approval. So it's like he's coming before us as a courtesy when this is supposed to be part of the process. So I don't appreciate that feeling. I don't appreciate that process, and I don't appreciate the fact that the city didn't do what it needed to do before the fact, and after the fact email telling us that this is going to happen in the future if you don't hold an emergency meeting, isn't doing it before the fact. So maybe that's something we can discuss, getting a paper timeline to put on top of every single document so it doesn't happen again. How can we think future thinking? Because I mean, I don't think anyone can say that there was not community input on this building. I mean, there's been so many private meetings held out in the public and parking lots. People stayed in them parking lots for hours listening to presentations. And yet somehow the city didn't find it important enough to make sure that the timeline was met. So I'm disappointed in that. And that's where I'll wrap it up.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just lastly, note, when the email was sent, I went through and looked at it again. The date on it was 2022. So again, that's and that just may have been a typo on the city's part. And if that is, then we just need to own up to it. Because again, when looking at the email and it says 2022, December 2nd, I don't necessarily blame our city clerk or anyone else in terms of a timeline. If you look and you see that date on there, then that's what you would assume, less somebody else coming in and making that correction. So as to Councilwoman Green's point, some sort of timeline, as well as, calendars. We're in the age of technology. If we can get a calendar as land development plans come in that delineates that timeline, that can then be provided to the city clerk or city council. So we all know these dates are posted publicly somewhere, or even just provided to city council. So these types of things do not happen in the future. I think this is something we can learn a lesson from, as it's already essentially deemed approved. And I look to hear from Chair Madsen on future direction.
Any other comments, colleagues? Okay, so typically when we have a spirited session like this, we would give the applicant, like we did with the previous applicant, time to meet with council, 3 of us to discuss and sort of hash out steps moving forward. But given that we're looking at the end of the year, now it has not been uncommon, and I may get a lump of coal in my stocking this year, for council to meet prior to the end of the year. My recommendation as chair is to meet before the end of the year, either the 28th or maybe the 27th, or one of these days before Christmas and New Year's, in between time, meet with the applicant to discuss and go over some of these things. There's a lot to unpack. I'll be candid. I don't know that I can make the most informed vote right now, given that all this information we've received and the feedback from the public. I do want to be clear, when someone invests in the city, we want to see them succeed. But at the same time, we want to give a thorough, transparent overview of the process, make sure the public can come in and ask questions. And again, there's a lot of moving pieces to this. A lot of topics were brought up that I think were really relevant to this specific land development plan. but I think are relevant in terms of city government. So I would recommend as chair, and I don't know, solicitor, as for parliamentary purposes, can we table this and then open it up for a special session to work on some of these things? And then side note is, if my colleagues disagree and they would like to vote on this, my recommendation to them would be to have someone call after tabling it for a vote.
It has to be voted on if it's voted on in 2021. It cannot move to the next session. The legislation dies December 31st.
Right.
Assuming Mr. Allott doesn't assault you for making him come back for something.
Wait a minute, don't even look at him.
But you would have to agree tonight that you would have a special session.
I would have to.
No, you're right, but I'm saying, but it would have to be tonight. You would have, before you
Exactly.
do it. So, because if you table it, it's essentially, you can't guarantee there's a people.
And let me just, let me wait a minute, just let me be very honest with you. There is a lot of kind of discussion tonight, and I have to be very, very honest with you, Mr. Moss. I've been on this council 16 years, and in 16 years, I've looked at that building every day, because I live uptown. And I looked at it deteriorate. And I've had people come in here and ask to buy it, purchase it. Not one, not two, about 10. And Ms. Daniels is correct, because there does not seem to be transparency. But all of a sudden, you get to own that building, and last year, or the year before COVID-18, someone else came in and they gave a price of $2.5 million. So that person said, no, I'm backing out. And then $1.5 million, that person said, no, I'm backing out. And all of a sudden, you have an opportunity to purchase a building that's been sitting vacant over 20 years. And there was about 10 or 12 people before you. So I agree with her. I mean, it does look shaky. And I'm a little concerned about how the transaction of the building went down to you. Because there was some involvement by city, and I'm going to say this, and you can hold me accountable. Somewhere along the line, there was someone here in this city that helped you maneuver the sale of that city, of that building, whether you sit here and say it or not. Because first of all, you said right there when they asked about the LRTA, you said you didn't know anything about the LRTA. If you're the owner of that building, you should know every aspect of that sale, including the LRTA, Rcap, everything. So that's my concern, that you didn't know nothing about the transaction. Now, I'm not going to get on you because I sat here quiet. But I got to be very honest. I'm not no dummy when it comes to remembering things in the city council. I've been here 16 years, like I said. I know how many people wanted that building.
Right.
Now I'm going to say to you, Neil, I'm not coming back December 28th.
It's your college you're speaking
Okay,
to.
I'm telling this, well, I'm telling him, I'm not coming back. I'm not calling a special legislative session, okay? But we need to know what is our best move here. If we can vote on it, he doesn't get our approval, or we vote on it, he gets our approval. It's already deemed approved.
Right. I honestly can't answer the question about what happens if you vote no. I just don't know the legal answer because it doesn't come up very often. Part of this is not just the MPC, it's the city code. I think there is always process questions that could be done better. And one of them is you could amend the city code to provide an extension if it's requested by council, which doesn't exist in the code that council previously approved. I mean, there's things that can be done procedurally that way. But I think the answer really is very close to what you're saying. There has to be some more alerts in the process of when you're on the calendar. This has to do with like lots and lots of different factors just came into play. I mean, including a hurricane, the first time was going to be hurt. And then it just went from there. So you can always improve process. So.
Yes, approval. I don't want this young man, he invested his money to sit here through another session of, bunch of questions or a bunch of answers that he has to reply to. I see right now, if we do approve it, it's fine. If we don't approve it, it goes to what legal aspect you don't know. So
I don't know.
We're like.
Right. So if I can say anything from gray-haired old guy, the city should be very hesitant to throw away $2.5 million from the state government coming into a city construction project. It's a rare day it happens. And someone has to match every penny of that. So it's $5 million that's coming into a city construction
You know what?
project.
I'm excited about renovating this building. So I'm tired of riding by and seeing this eyesore. But on the other end, I just don't like the way that the transaction went down. I can be very honest with you.
Right.
I don't like it. You know, I've heard about a little bit more, but I'm not going to dwell into it because I don't want to accuse him or anyone else of anything. But it's really a shaky deal that went down, and we've heard about it, and you know that they're concerned because the neighborhood organization back there ties it to the beach house, and we know we tie it to a company that we hire to lobby for us. And then we tie it to that gentleman who's head of that company. So at this point, I just need to know from a legal standpoint, what councils.
Your option tonight is to vote yes or no, as it always is. If you
And
table it,
regardless, whatever
without a
goes.
special session, it will die at the table.
Okay, so he doesn't, he's approved, but he doesn't get council's approval. That's all.
But then it still has to be signed by city officials, including the council.
And I have to sign.
Yeah, I'm saying, I will say, and this is, they can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's valuable to a bank that's lending you money. It's valuable to a title
Right.
insurance company insuring your
Understand
building, that it's approved as opposed deemed approved. The people that are in the business of security want to not be left on a technicality for their security. And so that makes doing business more expensive in Harrisburg if they're left to technicality.
I don't want to deter you from doing business in Harrisburg, but I want to make sure that you understand that the next time that you want to invest in something in the city of Harrisburg, that you watch very, very closely the details of what you need to do when you come before council. And not only that, as you stated, you don't have one person who's interested in leasing, the occupancy of the building. I just don't want you to do renovations and have one person in that building and then the remaining buildings is empty, because things like that have happened where they built an area like they call a mall, and they see one occupant and there's 5 other buildings that's not occupied. So I'm saying to you, I'm going to vote yes because we don't have a choice. But if I had a choice, I would certainly table this and make you come back just to get more information on and what your communication basis is with the neighborhood union. Because they have concerns. And I don't want people in the uptown area to have concerns. And he's talking about a voice, he's been here 5 years. Yes, I've been a voice. I don't want just to see uptown be, revitalized. I want to see the whole city of Harrisburg revitalized. It's just not about uptown, it's about the city. I'm looking at making sure that the residents up in the uptown area, though, are satisfied with what you're going to do with the building, because I live up there as well. I just don't want you to see it be idle for 110. So if you can assure me that you'll continue to look for investment in tenants, then I don't have a problem voting yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm going to be watching. Because I live uptown and I'm going to be watching.
One last comment I want to make on this, and I promise we can move forward, but I think that we have seen so much in the last 4 years of the challenges of the administration and where we've seen failures for transparency. Luckily, the community came out and voted, and we are changing administrations. Let this be a lesson for us going forward about the importance of this, because I think if anything, this lack of transparency that has occurred in this past administration is a lesson and a reminder for us going forward of how we can continue to improve this process.
Thank you for that. Not to belabor the point, but I do recommend that the future administration maybe take a look at some of the concerns council mentioned, for example, some of these contract issues and then some of the errors, and then recommendations of best practices moving forward as we enter the new year. But it seems like my colleagues would like to vote on the legislation. So my recommendation to the chair is we move it forward for a vote.
Thank you. And I can assure you that we certainly will be looking, one of the things, I just wrote it down, we will be looking at making changes. I have a vote to go back into the business. Have a second?
Second.
We are now going back into the legislative session, and we are now going to address Resolution 81. Please read into record.
Resolution 81 of 2021 is a resolution approving the preliminary final land development plan to rehabilitate the existing building on the principal parcel at 2101 North Sixth Street into a mix of uses to consolidate 13 existing parcels into 5 distinct lots and to develop vacant lots into adjoining block.
And I know there's no comments or questions or comments, or is it?
Just one comment. just one,
Okay,
just
thank
one. I'll be quick. So I just wanted to thank my colleagues for the spirited discussion and timeline and really trying to make this improvement. And thank you to all of the community members for your involvement as well. What I heard was process improvement, transparency, and communication. I hope that we can move forward in the likes of those spirits as this project continues. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Daniels, did you want to say something?
Oh, no.
Oh,
I mean,
okay, I thought I see your hand go up.
No.
Okay. Mr. Petrosky, please call the vote.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
No.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Resolution 81 passes.
Good luck, Mr. Mawson. Like I said, I will be, interacting with you. And if you're up in that area, have an opportunity to stop and talk to you and see how you're progressing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish you well.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm happy to do walkthroughs at any time, and I'm happy to come back and answer more questions.
You provide your information to our clerk.
Well, with the, yeah.
Moving on to resolution 82. Mr. Petrosky, please read that into record.
Yeah, resolution 82 of 2021 is a resolution ratifying and approving the 2022-2025 basic labor agreement between the city of Harrisburg and Local 521 American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees District Council 90.
Council members, any questions or comments on this resolution? For the public, I hope 2022 is going to be a different year for the bargaining units, that we should have a member of council involved in that bargaining unit negotiations as well as the administration. Because at this point, we're not able to make any adjustments or changes or amendments. And I think it's unfair to the public when they don't have an opportunity to hear everything in that contract. And I am for making sure that we try to justify the raises of some of the ASME workers because they did not receive raises during the Act 47 as much as they should have. But on the other end of that, I think, council should be involved in negotiating because it comes to us at the last minute and we're not able to give our opinion or give an amendment to where we feel we should. Because we do have 3 bargaining units, not only one. We have IFR, we have the Fraternal Order of Police, and each one should be dealt with in the same negotiating manner as this was.
It's something to be explored, Council President. I will note under labor law, the negotiations, the participants are obligated for confidentiality, which really does make the public part of the process very challenging. Whether the council could designate a chair, but even those would then be an executive session to discuss what those are. Council can always put forward recommendations to a mayor.
Well, I think this was just negotiated and not good faith. That's my personal opinion. I've been involved in negotiations. And it puts the city of Harrisburg at an awkward position because it comes to us, city council, and we have no objections. We don't have an opportunity to do any amendments, and we should.
I am unaware of anywhere that happens, Madam President. I'll just let you know that's.
Fact of the matter is that, looking at money and you're talking about taxpayers' money. This is the residents, the 50,900 residents we have here. This is their money that we're talking about when we deal with the bargaining units. So we have to be very careful how we're spending their money and how it looks to them. I mean, I understand they were not given an opportunity to have a raise in the last 4 or 5 years. But on the other end, I think you still should have a chair from the city council who is involved in those negotiations, who knows and can come back to the other 6 members and let them know what is being negotiated.
I would say that would
Even
be
on the
up to a
pension,
mayor.
even on the
so
benefits, even on the salary state. So that we're not blindsided when we get it and we're looking at something and we're questioning. And yet no one can give us any answers because it's already been ratified and approved. But anyway, please call the vote.
Calling the vote for resolution 82 of 2021, Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Resolution 82 passes.
Moving on to resolution 83.
Resolution 83 of 2021 is a resolution appointing Mr. Matthew Pianca to serve on the zoning hearing board of the city of Harrisburg.
Is there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett, Ms.
Yes.
Bowers, Ms.
Yes.
Daniels, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Resolution 83 passes.
Moving on to the next resolution, 84.
Resolution 84 of 2021 is a resolution appointing Mr. Claude Phipps to serve on the zoning hearing board of the city of Harrisburg.
Any questions and comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers, Ms.
Yes.
Daniels, Ms. Green,
An emphatic yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Resolution 84 passes.
Moving on to resolution 85.
Resolution 85 of 2021 is a resolution appointing Ms. Anna Bianco to serve on the zoning hearing board of the city of Harrisburg.
Any questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett, Ms.
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Resolution 85 passes.
Moving on, resolution 86.
Resolution 86 of 2021 is a resolution appointing Mr. Alexander Reber to serve on the redevelopment authority of the city of Harrisburg.
Any questions or comments, council members? Please call the vote.
Mr. Allett,
And for the last time, yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
and Ms. Williams.
My last time as well, yes. I know.
Resolution 86 passes.
Thank you.
Dave tried to give you guys another opportunity.
Yeah. I'm a little hurt. Hurt is a very big word for it. Hurt, yes.
Well, thank you for trying to give you that opportunity. But moving on to old business, council members, is there any old business?
Yes, I just wanted to note that prior to our legislative session tonight, we met to host a public hearing relative to the Department of Building and Housing to discuss the program year 2020 CAPER presentation. And the CAPER is the report that is required by HUD annually from the city relative to the performance of its community planning and development programs, including CDBG, the Community and Development Block Grant, Home, and ESG programs.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Any other old business? Hearing none, moving on to new business.
Yes, have some new business. First, just want to take an opportunity to again thank all of my colleagues on council for another 2-year term. You know, we as a body accomplished quite a bit over these last 2 years, and I'm glad that we are moving the city forward in a positive direction to begin getting ourselves out of all of the financial hardships that our city has faced for far too long. We have a great opportunity and look forward to working with the new administration on how we allocate the American Rescue Plan dollars moving forward. I know that that is something that we on this body have all been very passionate about trying to get a hold on and a grasp on how we do that forward. And I feel fairly confident that the new administration will work collaboratively with us to move this forward. It is something that, you know, we as a body have mentioned at every council meeting, maybe less one, since the dollars had come down, and it is something that can be a complete game changer for how the city of Harrisburg moves forward. Couple that with the infrastructure plan money and our partnerships that we will have with our with the Water Authority and other entities in our region, we can really make Harrisburg continue to go through this renaissance that we're experiencing after decades of a very difficult time. So look forward to working with all of my returning colleagues. And I just, and prior to me concluding, we are losing two champions of the city. One will be returning in the executive role, but to my colleague who sits to the left of me is a person, Mr. Allett, who I've gotten to know over the last 6 years that we've served together on council, and has been someone who, as he mentioned, has been a true champion of the city and really dug into dealing with these financial hardships that our community has experienced, and has helped us forge a path on the way out. Leading the Budget and Finance Committee is always a challenging endeavor. He did it with a lot of willingness to compromise and grace, and willingness to collaborate with all of us on council. So on behalf of City Council and our Chief Clerk, I just wanted to present you with a brief token of our appreciation for all your hard years of service, and we wish you good luck on your future endeavors.
Open it, so. For those watching at home, it's a watch with the city seal. Matches that right there. And like Christmas came early.
I'll read it. So it's from the City of Harrisburg. Honorable Ben Allett, Vice President of City Council, on behalf of your colleagues on Harrisburg City Council, the City Clerk, and the City of Harrisburg, we thank you for your dedication and service to our community. You have fought for those less fortunate and walked as a true public servant for all the people in our community with integrity and passion. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. And I'll leave it at that for that. And then, as members of our community mentioned, there are a lot of things that us as a body have to work on, and we look forward to hitting the ground running with our new colleagues that will be joining us, Mr. Rodriguez, as well as Ms. Rawls, and looking forward to working with the next administration.
Any other new business?
Yes, please. Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to make a presentation to our fearless council president, Mrs. Wanda Williams. You too will receive a lovely watch featuring the city seal and a plaque as well, which reads, City of Harrisburg, Honorable Wanda R.D. Williams, President of City Council. On behalf of your colleagues on Harrisburg City Council, the City Clerk, and the City of Harrisburg, we thank you for your dedication and service to our community. You have fought for those less fortunate and walked as a true public servant for all people in our community with integrity and passion. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Presented by Harrisburg City Council, and it notes your years of service, 2005 to 2020.
Wow, that makes me old, huh? Thank you so much to my council members. I'm certainly going to miss each and every last one of you being up here on council. But now I play another role. So don't beat up on me too bad here. And I'm going to enjoy working with each one of you. We have a lot of work to do, and I know that we'll get that accomplished. My first year with me and you being on this council I know that we're going to put a mark on the city map. Thank you so much. I truly don't want to cry, so I'm just going to stop here because I love each and every one of you. I feel that as each one of you came on council, I was responsible for trying to train you and nourish you as a mother. And now I look at you and know that you are more than what I expected. You are experienced, you're leaders, you're workers, and you're compassionate about what you do. And I'm so, so proud of each and every one of you. This is the best council that I think that we've ever had in the last 16 years. So good luck to you. And like I said, don't beat me up too bad when I get over there. And good night. On that note, is any other new business? I just want to
So-
say, oh, go ahead.
Not to be that guy, but I guess
Okay, good night. Good night.
I would, while the end was very difficult, I would like to extend a thank you to Mayor Pappenfuss for his service over the last 8 years and his administration and all of those that worked with him. We did do some good things together. Again, towards the end, I had my disagreements with him. Wherever he is, I do wish him and his family all the best and success in all their future endeavors as well.
And on that note, I'd also like to extend a sincere thank you to Mr. Grover because you were very much. And
on that note,
okay, all right, Mr. Grover. You were very much in attendance during the time that we needed you the most and when the mayor was not present. You were able to walk us through difficult times through the city of Harrisburg before you became a member of the administration team. And I just want to say thank you for walking us through that horrible period of restructuring our debt. And you brought us to a good place with your leadership and expertise on that legal team. I personally want to say thank you because I was there for every hour and every minute, and you were as well. Done an excellent job, and you've done an excellent job as the solicitor here. So I look forward to many, many more years of interacting with you.
Thank you, madam.
On that note, can I adjourn? Motion for adjourn?
So moved.
Wow, this is my last time for me to hit the gavel and it's coming apart. Is that telling me to get moving to the other side?
Get a new gavel.
Okay, have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting is officially adjourned. Good night and Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. Be safe.